Chapter 216. The moonlight shone on the snowy ground. In the flowing light and shadow, the two of them stood facing each other. There was no need to hide. Hien's gaze fell on the autumn drinking sword in her hand. At this moment, she realized how heavy the sword was. It was so heavy that she almost couldn't hold it anymore. "When did you find out?" she asked softly. "I found Huanru's wet nurse," Xiaoju replied. Hien suddenly looked up at him. His expression was as calm as ever, as if what he said was just a trivial matter. Thousands of complex emotions surged in her heart. Bitterness, panic, nervousness, and finally, they all turned into a sigh of relief. "I'm sorry," Hien tried to make herself look more relaxed. "I didn't mean to lie to you." But why did she lie? Even she couldn't come up with an acceptable reason. Xiaoju bent down to pick up the broken sword on the ground. The sword in his hand had been cut in two by Hien's autumn drinking sword. Hien quietly watched his movements. When he bent down and stood up, he said, "Already know everything, more or less." Xiaoju's gaze was calm. "You are Su Zhiheng's deceased wife, and he Rufei who wears a mask." When the words "deceased wife" came out of his mouth, Hien's heart shook violently. It was as if the secret that she didn't want to be discovered had been exposed. For no reason, she looked a little embarrassed. She had been brave all her life and never feared facing thousands of troops on the battlefield. Only when she faced this person in front of her did she have the thought of retreating. But she couldn't run away. Since she had been discovered, she had to face it. No matter if it was a past full of conspiracies and schemes, or a future with no path ahead. "That's right," Hien said. "I am Hien, and he Rufei, your classmate." Xiaoju's eyes moved slightly. After a moment, he asked, "How did you become the daughter of the military officer at the city gate? If you've already found Mother Qin, you should already know how I died." Hien smiled bitterly and looked at the icicles hanging from the trees not far away. The icicles were like teardrops hanging from the branches. "After I died, when I woke up again, I was already in now. Maybe God took pity on me and gave me another chance." Hien shrugged. "Even if I told you about the supernatural, no one would believe me. Maybe someone would even think that I was talking nonsense. However, since you've already found me, I think you already believe this matter. Why did you exchange identities with Rufei?" Hien was startled. His eyes, which had always been bright, seemed to be covered by a layer of mist at this moment, giving birth to a bit of confusion. "Xiaoju, no one could decide their own fate at birth. It's the same for me. When I could remember, I was already Rufei," she slowly said. "I only knew that my eldest brother wouldn't live for long. If I didn't become Rufei, the title of nobility of the He family would be taken away. Therefore, I had to live in the name of Rufei and live like this for the rest of my life. However, at that time, I was too young and didn't want to succumb to this kind of fate. Therefore, I left the He family and joined the Fuyu army. I earned military merits and received a reward. I also didn't expect that my eldest brother, who was destined to die young, didn't die and was even safe and healthy. Therefore, when I returned to the capital, everything went back to its original place. He became Rufei, and I became Hien. This was good. There was nothing bad about this. Although she felt a bit wronged at that time, this was already the best ending she could think of. Whether it was Rufei or Hien, both of them would be able to escape unscathed." Hien slightly raised her head, as if she was trying to force back the tears. She smiled and said, "Rufei is the famous General Fei Hong. Second miss, he is just a sickly person with poor health. When she reached the age, she could use Rufei's name to find a good marriage for herself. Originally, this matter would have ended at this point. It's just that they were afraid that I would reveal some clues and implicate the entire He family, so they didn't trust me. Therefore, after this, they took my life." Hien laughed self-deprecatingly. "This should be a punishment from the heavens for me. Those who rebelled against fate would eventually be wiped out by fate. If she had obediently stayed in the He family as Rufei back then and didn't go to the battlefield, didn't strive for military achievements, and didn't become General Fei Hong, perhaps when the time came, she and Rufei would return to their positions and wouldn't have lost their lives. But if someone asked if she could turn back time, and if she had the chance to choose again, Would she still leave the He family? He thought that she probably would. It was because she had embarked on a path that was completely different from the predetermined fate that she realized that the vastness of the world, the scenery, and the scenery were completely different from those hidden in the 4 residences. Your eyes. It was the He family who blinded me. Ian interrupted him, but they probably didn't expect that I could live well without my eyes. This is all thanks to you. She smiled slightly. I will remember what you said to me that day at Yuhua Temple. Even if I become a blind person, I want to be the one who is the most different among the blind people. Xiao Ju's breathing deepened slightly. What he said was also hurting Yin. If Yin had become a blind person, after he no longer posed a threat to the He family, he might have been able to save his life. It was because she didn't accept her fate that the He family became uneasy again and took her life away. Xiao Ju, please don't blame yourself. Ian seemed to have seen through her thoughts. I don't regret my choice at that time. If I didn't meet you, I wouldn't even have the courage to live. As early as the mid-autumn night at Yuhua Temple, there should be no He in this world. Fate was cruel, but it was also mysterious. Every seemingly careless choice would lead to unpredictable results. Now that she had become He Sui's daughter, she was no longer blind. Old friends appeared in front of her one by one. She couldn't tell if she felt more regretful or more fortunate. I am Hien, and I am also He Rufei. She smiled slightly. When I first woke up, I accidentally stumbled into the recruit camp of the Liang Province Guards. When I told you that I wanted to make a name for myself, I wasn't lying. Because only by standing at the same height as He Rufei can I expose his lies. My life alone is not important, but because of me, He Rufei caused the deaths of many innocent people. This is unforgivable. What he owes me, I will take it back myself. Now that I have become Marquis Wu, and I have the ability to fight against him. What I'm going to do next is also these things. I'm sorry, Xiao Ju, I didn't mean to lie to you. It's just that there are some things that are too ridiculous to say. Maybe it's because I'm too timid and don't know how to face you. You've been lying to me, he said. Ian's fingers curled up slightly, and he took a deep breath. I'm sorry. Are you also lying to me about liking me? He asked. Ian suddenly raised his head. He stood in the wind, his posture tall and straight, just like in the past. Yet he also seemed to have returned to the beginning, a distance that could never be touched. No. Xiao Ju looked at him indifferently. I didn't lie to you. Ian paused, swallowed the sourness in his throat, and then continued. When I was He Rufei in the Xianchang dojo, you took care of me a lot. You helped me apply medicine and taught me swordsmanship. In this life, when I was He Yin, you always protected me. You always appeared when I was in danger. Xiao Ju, I used to like you, and now I like you even more. Some things, once said, were said, it was as if all of his worries were gone. He Yin knew very well that Xiao Ju was someone who hated betrayals and lies. This was related to the Xiao family's accident. Thus, when he found out that she was pretending to be a man in the Liang Province Guards, he was also this sensitive. And now, an even bigger secret had been exposed. To Xiao Ju, from the moment they met, it had been a complete lie. She had no right to ask for Xiao Ju's forgiveness. I'm not the real Lady He. She took a deep breath and revealed a fake relaxed smile. I really didn't want to drag you into this. Originally, I just wanted to make a name for myself in the Liang Province Guards and be your right-hand man. I didn't think that things would come to this between you and me. His Majesty bestowed a marriage upon the two of us, and I can't go against it. But, she looked at Xiao Ju. You don't have to take this marriage to heart. Just treat it as a partnership. If you find a girl you like in the future, I will tell her that you and I are just putting on show. When the time comes, you can cancel the marriage or divorce me. It doesn't matter. Xiao Ju's eyes suddenly turned cold, and she slowly asked, divorce you? He pretended to be indifferent and sighed. Actually, marriage doesn't mean anything, really. Don't look at how happy Yin Nongguang is and think that there are many benefits to marriage. I've been married before, and if we talk about it, I was happier before I got married. Perhaps I am more suitable to be alone. 2 marriages are not good enough. She joked, wait until you divorce me, and I have settled all the debt of gratitude and enmity. Then one man, one horse, I will roam the Jianghu. It's better than living the life of an ordinary woman in this courtyard house. Not very good. It's just a pity for you. She seemed to be genuinely worried for Xiao Ju. Everything was fine, but I've blocked your marriage for no reason. Xiao Ju coldly said, Hien, don't look so angry. Hien laughed. The one who should be sad is me. It wasn't easy to deceive a marriage, but now it's been exposed. Fortunately, I'm a very broad-minded person, and I'm always open-minded about everything. After today, you and I will be ordinary schoolmates. Xiao Ju, she said seriously, pausing between each word. Thank you, no matter if it was in the past or now. Her smile was relaxed, and she looked like she didn't care at all, like a heartless youth in the Liang province guards. However, only Hien knew that when she said these words, every word was like a knife cutting into her heart. She liked this person so much and had experienced so much with this person. Xiao Ju had given her warmth and treasures that she had never experienced before. She thought that she had caught the moon, but in reality, she had only caught the reflection of the moon under the water. Now that she had woken up from her dream, she should return to her own path. Greed was a taboo in a relationship. If she didn't have that bit of greed, perhaps she wouldn't have been so sad when they parted. Hien raised a big smile, thought for a moment, and reached out to Xiao Ju. Here, this is your autumn wine, and now it's returned to its rightful owner. The youth didn't move, and his beautiful eyes focused on her, surging with an emotion that Hien couldn't understand. In the next moment, he strode forward, and Hien handed the autumn wine back to him. He didn't take the sword. That hand grabbed Hien's arm, and with a gentle tug, pulled her into an embrace. Hien was shocked. Under the seemingly cold black robe, there was an incomparably warm embrace. Just like the most valiant general, he had the softest heart. Xiao Ju, Hien leaned into his embrace and could hear the other person's clear and powerful heartbeat. It was more intense than any other heartbeat, as if it was a declaration of the youth's unknown feelings. She raised her head and saw Xiao Ju's chin. Hien's hand was supporting Hien's waist, and he pressed her head against his chest, as if he was comforting her, but also as if he was afraid that she would escape from his imprisonment. I'm sorry. What? The youth's voice was restrained, hoarse and deep. I didn't recognize you at first sight. In an instant, Hien's eyes were wet. For a long time, it was as if she had walked alone in the dark for a long time. No one had discovered her existence, and no one cared about her sadness or joy. No one apologized, and no one cheered. Happiness or sadness, beginning or ending, it was all her story. Until one day, someone discovered her. The only person in the world was her light, the source of all her brilliance. Hey, she wanted to lighten the atmosphere. Xiao Huaijin, I can't bear to see you like this. He hugged Hien even tighter and whispered in her ear, I missed you twice. This time, I won't miss you again. Hien was stunned. She broke free from Xiao Ju's embrace and looked at him in surprise. I'm not Lady He, I'm Hien. I know. I've lied to you, from your previous life until now. I know. I've already been married. She seemed to find it hard to say. Xiao Ju, even if that's the case, are you still the same as before? She didn't think that people who had been married were inferior. There were so many women in the world who had divorced, and those who had been abandoned were no worse than others. It was just that they were unlucky, or they had no choice but to choose the wrong marriage. It didn't prevent them from obtaining happiness. But it turned out that when people met the person they really liked, even if it was a fairy, they would secretly worry about whether they matched the other party. Happiness made people timid, and timidity made people feel inferior. Moreover, she had received too little love, and even the affirmation was very little. Under the night sky, the youth's eyes were like limpid autumn water, and all the coldness and ridicule had faded away. It was unbelievably warm. Xiao Ju smiled. Why are you so unconfident? Even if you've been married, in my eyes, you're just a girl. He leaned over slightly, looking into her eyes. So what if I'm General Feihong? I'm only here for Hien. Chapter 217. It was unknown when Xiang had sneaked back. She stood under the tree and watched them quietly. Ian looked at him blankly. Is what you said true? I see that your swordsmanship has improved a lot. Why are you still the same as before? He said lazily, stupid and short. These words seemed to have pulled Yin back to the past, and the embarrassment and sorry state he was in earlier had unknowingly dissipated greatly. There seemed to be a surge of warmth in her heart, and all of her uneasiness turned to ashes at this moment. She raised her head, unable to hide her smile. But you were exactly the same as you were back then. Xiaoju coughed and turned her head. Yin was excited and didn't want to let him go. He grabbed his sleeves and didn't let go. He tilted his head and asked, My sword skills were taught by you personally, but I was still dressed as a man. Why did you take care of me? Could it be that you already liked me at that time? These words were really shameless. Xiaoju sneered. I'm not a homosexual, but you look like a homosexual. Yin suddenly understood. No wonder Yin Nongguang always disliked me at that time. He probably thought that I was some kind of male seductress who tarnished the only genius he saw as a rival. Xiaoju stared at her in disbelief. You're not sad now? I was not sad in the first place. Yin said stubbornly. You were about to cry just now. He raised his eyebrows. You can't bear to part with me? Yin could not keep her face. She retorted. How could I cry? You saw wrong. Of course I can't bear to part with you. We were schoolmates after all. Just the friendship of schoolmates. Yin ignored her. She leaned closer to him and said, Don't change the topic. Tell me first, why did you teach me swordsmanship at the Xianchang dojo? You are not someone who likes to help others. You must have fallen in love with me at that time. Xiao Huaijin, could it be that you are really a homosexual? Xiao Ju's face darkened as she reprimanded. Nonsense. Then tell me why. Yin had wanted to ask him this question for a long time. At that time, he and Xiao Ju did not have a close relationship, but Xiao Ju was willing to teach him swordsmanship on the last night of the Virtuous Prosperity Dojo. It was no wonder that he could not figure it out. Even Xiao Ju herself did not understand. Xiao Ju smiled. Do you still remember the winter solstice competition at the Eastern Mountain hunting ground in the capital when we first entered the Virtuous Dojo? Yin was stunned. I remember. What's wrong? She still remembered that it was at that time when she first saw Shen Muxue in her previous life. When the cold and aloof young Miss Shun and the handsome second young Master Xiao stood together, they looked like a match made in heaven, even from the perspective of this lifetime. Yin muttered, At that time, His Majesty personally came to the hunting ground. All the students in the Virtuous Prosperity Dojo had to enter the competition. The students who caught the most prey would be rewarded. The students who did not catch any prey would not be able to eat. Who came up with this idea? The weather was cold and the ground was frozen. It was normal that they did not catch any prey. How could they be so harsh on the students and let them starve? Speaking of this, she was still indignant. There was no other reason than Yin was the one who did not catch any prey and went hungry. Xiao Ju chuckled. Wasn't that your choice? What? You clearly caught a rabbit, but you let it go. She turned her head and looked at Yin. Wasn't that your choice? Yin was stunned. He stammered. How did you know? Because Xiao Ju curved her lips. That was a rabbit. I'll let it go. At that time, it was winter in Shuajing. The hunting ground was completely covered in white snow. At that time, the Xiao family was not in trouble. Su Jingfu was not at the stage where he could cover the sky with one hand. Emperor Wen Xian had a sudden impulse and personally came to Dong Mountain to watch the students of the Virtuous Prosperity Dojo compete. Originally, it was just a competition in archery and horse riding. Because of the arrival of the emperor, there were more prizes. In order to make the youths work harder and not lose face for the Virtuous Prosperity Dojo, some genius teacher in the dojo came up with a harsh rule. If they did not catch any prey, they would not be able to eat. He cursed the person who came up with this idea in his heart. She was not very good at martial arts. Her horsemanship and archery were even worse. Being together with these youngsters, he really had no advantage. Without a doubt, once they entered the hunting grounds, unlike his classmates who were in high spirits, Yin was simply especially helpless. At that time, Xiao Ju was, without a doubt, the most eye-catching of all the youths. The horse was wearing a marten coat, and looked beautiful. In a flash, there was a long string of prey tied behind the horse. Lin Shuanghe was a weak young master who could not lift or carry anything. He followed Xiao Ju closely and gained a lot of benefits. It did not matter if there was prey or not. In the end, if he could get one or two from Xiao Ju's prey, it would be enough to complete his task. The two walked in the forest of the hunting ground. Suddenly, not far away, they saw a gray arrow flying from the side. It accurately hit a piece of Shur-Tu. The two paused for a moment. Soon, a short figure ran out from the forest. She ran to the side of the Shur-Tu and pulled out the arrow. After looking at it, she simply sat on the ground and sighed. She said to herself, "Hunting is difficult. It's harder than ascending to the blue sky." Xiao Ju and Lin Shuanghe, they all recognized that the masked man who was moaning and groaning was young Master He from the bottom of the Virtuous Prosperity Hall. Lin Shuanghe had previously improved together with He Yin. He already felt some sympathy for He Yin. Seeing this scene, he said, "My brother, he is too pitiful." Xiao Ju looked on coldly from the sidelines, unmoved. In his opinion, this young master of the He clan was often mentally ill most of the time. You see, there is not a single prey on his horse. When he goes back, he won't have anything to eat. He'll be hungry. In this cold winter, it's not good to be hungry. Lin Shuanghe was a doctor with the heart of a parent. He said mercifully, "How about we give him a badger so that he won't be empty-handed?" Xiao Ju sneered, "You go by yourself." Lin Shuanghe really walked in front of Xiao Ju's horse. He picked the prey tied to the back of the horse. But halfway through, he suddenly realized, no, He Rufei can't do anything. However, he is extremely stubborn. If we give it to him like this, he will most likely not agree. He will even righteously refuse. Just like how he proposed to let He Rufei be the last in the exam so that he could strive to be the second last. This young master was extremely principled. Money would not be able to move him. Lin Shuanghe thought that he had a good eye for people. He Rufei would most likely not accept such a straightforward help. How about this? Lin Shuanghe had an idea. "Huaijin, your archery skills are very good. Later, you will shoot a rabbit and let He Rufei pass by. An injured rabbit can't run fast. If He Rufei can't hit it, then he really has a mental problem." "What does that have to do with me?" Xiao Ju frowned. "I'm not going. Saving a life is better than building a 7-story pagoda. Look at this boy. He is too pitiful. We're all classmates. It's just a matter of convenience." Huaijin, Lin Shuanghe was a person who was especially patient when it came to trivial matters. He also knew that Xiao Ju was the most impatient person. Sure enough, after nagging for a while, Xiao Ju was annoyed. He picked up the bow on his horse and shot an arrow in a direction. From the bushes, a gray rabbit suddenly jumped out. The arrow was shot very coincidentally. It did not hit the rabbit and just grazed one of its legs. Thus, the rabbit's movement slowed down. The arrow fell into the bushes and no one noticed. He Yin was leaning on the Shur-Tu and sighing. Suddenly, he saw a rabbit jump out of the forest. He was first shocked, then became happy. Without saying anything, he grabbed his bow and followed it. He didn't know what was wrong with this wild rabbit, but its movements were much slower than the ones they encountered before. He Yin guessed that it might be because the winter was too cold, and even the rabbits became less agile. But this was also a good thing. The fast rabbit couldn't be caught, but the slow one couldn't fly away, right? Lin Shuanghe praised Xiao Ju in a low voice. "Huaijin, your help was flawless. This boy must think that he got a good deal. Let's go and take a look." He pulled the unwilling Xiao Ju and secretly followed behind He Yin. The rabbit ran for a while. It seemed that it did not have enough strength and became slower. He Yin thought for a while and put the bow and arrow on his back. He felt that even if he did not use the bow and arrow, the rabbit would most likely not be able to run on its own. He could catch it with his bare hands. In ancient times, there was a saying that one would wait for a rabbit to pass out. He Yin applauded himself in his heart. He actually still had the time to carefully observe the rabbit. This rabbit was very thin. Perhaps it was hungry because there was no food in the winter. It looked like even if it was fried, it would not have much meat. Lin Shuanghe's imagination ran wild. She did not know if the prey she hunted could be shared with the students. However, if she brought this rabbit back to the He family, it would not even be enough for the whole family. Not long after, the rabbit stopped. It pulled open a bush and revealed a hole. He-Yan's eyes were sharp and his hands were fast. Before it could go in, he grabbed the rabbit by the ear and lifted it up. He said to himself, "Everyone says that a cunning rabbit has 3 burrows. The ancient people did not lie to me." At this moment, something seemed to be moving at the entrance of the cave. He-Yan held the rabbit in one hand and, curiously pried, opened the grass with the other. Inside the small cave, there were 3 small furry buns. They looked like 3 yuan shao, and they were huddled together. It was actually 3 baby rabbits. He-Yan was stunned. She looked at the gray rabbit in her hand that was constantly kicking and struggling. She suddenly realized that this was a female rabbit. The rabbits in the hole were her cubs. He-Yan became silent. Lin Shuanghe was holding the Xiao Ju to watch the show from afar. When he saw this, he was pleasantly surprised. Rufei's luck is not bad. He actually found a rabbit nest. If he turns in this nest of rabbits, I think this time he won't be the last. He will at least be the second last. But why is he holding the rabbit in a daze? The rabbit under her hand jumped silently. He-Yan looked at the 3 sesame yuan shao in the hole. After a while, she sighed and took out a small white bottle. Hee, what is he doing? Lin Shuanghe was very surprised. The boy called Rufei was grabbing the rabbit's ear and applying medicine for it. He even tore a piece of cloth from his robe to bandage the rabbit's leg that was grazed by the arrow. She said while bandaging, "Forget it. Who told you to meet me? I am a good person. I can't do something like separating a mother and child. I will let you go." She complained endlessly. "Brats, you must remember that because of you, I have to go hungry today." He-Yan's movements were very fast. In just a moment, she finished bandaging the rabbit. She put the gray rabbit in her hand at the hole and let go of her hand. The rabbit was freed and rushed back into the hole with a whoosh. "You didn't even say thank you?" He-Yan sighed. Public morals are degenerating day by day. Although she said that, she still spread out the shirt near the hole to avoid being discovered by other animals. Lin Shuanghe was stunned. Is Rufei's brain okay? Is he here to hunt or to set animals free? Why is he showing mercy at this time? Why is he acting like a girl? Is he sympathizing with the rabbit? He turned to look at Xiao Ju. "Why, Jean, look?" Xiao Ju's gaze fell on the boy wearing the mask. He didn't know why, but he suddenly remembered something when he was young. That was before he left the mountain. He learned martial arts from a master on the mountain. The master was very strict. If he failed a mission or did not do well, the punishment was very severe. It was very difficult to endure. When he was on the mountain, there was one time where he tested his archery skills. At that time, Xiao Ju caught a deer. This deer was very fat. When it ran away, it was not as agile as other deer. He caught the deer. When he was about to raise his knife, the deer knelt down in front of him. This was a pregnant doe. At that time, he was 12 or 13 years old. He was not as cold and heartless as he was later. When he saw this scene, he couldn't help but feel sympathy. His master stood by the waterfall and looked at him. "You can't be soft-hearted." The boy stood in place and looked at the doe with tears in its eyes. He thought for a moment, then knelt down. In front of his master, he removed the rope on the doe and watched it escape into the forest. His master was not angry. He only looked at him and said, "Do you know what you are doing? You shouldn't be soft-hearted. I just want to protect what I want to protect." The boy's robe was as white as snow. He calmly replied. He was punished to break the array in the mountain for 3 months. Xiao Ju did not regret it. When he was young, he simply thought that he did not want this doe to die. But now he saw Rufei here, carefully bandaging the wound of a wild rabbit. This was not soft-heartedness, nor was it hypocrisy. He suddenly understood what he wanted to protect all those years ago. A heart of compassion for the weak. When a person wants to become strong, it is to protect the people they want to protect. If in order to become strong, you lose your heart, it is no different from putting the cart before the horse. "Why, Jean? I think Rufei really has a problem with his brain. If he wasn't a man, he could be my sister. Lin Shuanghe was still rambling on. The white-robed boy was stunned for a moment. He lowered his head and pulled the corners of his mouth, smiling to himself. That day, Hirufei really did not catch anything. He was also the only boy in the Xianchang dojo who did not catch any prey. It was also the second day after that day that Xiao Ju got up in the night and walked to the courtyard behind the bamboo forest. He watched the clumsy boy wearing a mask diligently and painstakingly practicing. From then on, his ill-fated relationship with the last place began. Yin was stunned. He never thought that he and Xiao Ju had such an unknown past. At that time, Xiao Ju's arrow was hidden very well. She did not realize that the rabbit with an injured leg was caused by Xiao Ju. She only saw that the rabbit was pitiful and felt compassion for it. She did not expect that Xiao Ju would be moved by this. You were moved by my kindness? Yin shuddered. Hearing this, he could not help but feel goosebumps. Xiao Ju seemed to be speechless. It's not kindness. It's just that at that time, Xiao Ju saw a shadow of her own past in Hirufei. Yin was happy. So that's how it is. So when you were classmates, you already paid attention to me? Then why did you pretend to be indifferent? Once this person started to be heartless, it was really hard to deal with. Xiao Ju changed the topic. It's not early anymore. You haven't returned home yet. Your father and brother must be worried. That's true. Yin came back to his senses. Seeing that it was already late at night, he guessed that he Sui and he Yinsheng should be home by now. They might be looking for him again. Afraid that they would be worried, Yin said, Then let's go back first? Xiao Ju whistled. Green Ear ran out of the forest and stopped in front of Xiao Ju. Yin also flipped on his Xiang's back. The two of them trotted down the mountain. Yin rode on his horse. As he galloped, he gradually came back to his senses. He said, Xiao Ju, you asked Qi Wu to ask me to retrieve the sword just to test me? You've been following me all this time? There was no trace of guilt on this person's face. He replied slowly, This is unbelievable. Of course, I have to confirm it. You wanted to force me to use the sword. You actually beat around the bush. Yin thought for a moment. But what's up with that Master Lu Daichuan? When I went to his villa, he seemed to know something. He even said that I already had a sword and couldn't have another one. Did you tell him about this? No. Xiao Ju's eyes flickered. Other than you and me, no one else knows about this. Then, even if he knows something, it's not strange. He's my master. Yin was surprised. Master? I have many masters. He's just one of them. It's not strange that he can see your background. But he's already an outsider. Even if he knows, he won't do anything. You don't have to worry. This isn't a problem of worry. Yin didn't know what to say. This person is your master. You should have at least told me in advance. Fortunately, I didn't do anything rash. If Xiao Ju glanced at her, seeing her uneasy expression, she laughed. What are you afraid of? Even if you did something, with me around, no one would dare to cause trouble for you. He made a tisk sound. You mean that I could do whatever I want in Shuo City now? Do whatever you want. Chapter 218. When Yin and Xiao Ju returned to the He residence, He Sui and He Yunsheng were sitting peacefully in the room. Yin was stunned for a moment. He was a little surprised that they were so calm today. He Sui saw Xiao Ju and stood up with a smile. When I came back, I heard from Imperial Bodyguard Qi Wu that military governor Xiao took my daughter out. Now that you're back, have you eaten? Do you want to eat together? Yin said, I've eaten. There's no need. He turned his head to look at Qi Wu, who was standing at the side. Qi Wu turned his face away as if nothing had happened. Yin thought to himself, so this master and servant are colluding. Not only did they deceive me, but they also deceived my old father. Uncle, just call me Huaijin, Xiao Ju said. He Yunsheng coughed and choked on his own saliva. He Sui glared at He Yunsheng and stuffed a sesame seed cake in his mouth. Eat properly. There are guests at home. Don't spit rice everywhere. It's too rude. Yin said, It's fine. Father, Yunsheng, you guys eat. I still have something to say to Xiao Ju. I'll go back to the room first. After saying that, he pulled Xiao Ju and left. If she stayed here any longer, she would feel uncomfortable looking at Father He. He Sui smiled lovingly and said, "Go." After the two of them left, He Yunsheng pulled the sentinel cake out of his mouth and said in a muffled voice, "Father, is this really okay?" "What?" He Yin brought a man to her room. "What would happen if word got out? In the past, when that bastard Fancheng was here, He Yin would go out to look at him and you would fly into a rage. Why are you so tolerant now that military governor Xiao is here?" He Sui scolded him. "How can military governor Xiao be the same as Fancheng? They're both men. What's the difference?" He Sui looked at He Yunsheng and was also puzzled. "Didn't you admire General Feng Yin the most before? Why are you acting so awkward now?" He Yunsheng put down his chopsticks on the table and said angrily, "General Feng Yin can't go to a woman's room before marriage." "Feng Yin, did he go there himself?" He Sui slapped his head. "Are you blind? Your sister was the one who dragged him in there." There was no way to refute this. He Yunsheng's cheeks puffed up for a long time before he gritted his teeth and said, "What a disappointing fellow. Lust blinded him." He Yin didn't know that her actions just now had caused an argument between her old father and her silly little brother. She dragged Xiao Ju into her room, closed the door, and lit the oil lamp with a match. "All right, there's no one here now." As soon as Xiao Ju entered the room, he felt that he had almost gone blind. He Yin's room was very fancy. It was completely different from his usual temperament. Rouge, face powder, perfume sachets, and curtains were everywhere. People who didn't know better would think that there was a delicate young lady living in there. But when he looked back, the heroine who jumped on the table and poured tea was really an eyesore. He picked up a bronze mirror engraved with flowers on the table and asked in confusion, "Do you like this?" He Yin glanced at it and said, "How can I?" These were all left by the original Lady He. She came back to her senses and said, "Don't think that I like this. It's just that if I tear them all down, it will be very different from the past. It will be suspicious. And," she sighed, "I already feel bad about taking over a magpie's room. If I change all of these things, I'm afraid that the real Lady He will come after me in the future." Xiao Ju frowned and said, "Nonsense." He Yin blinked. "Don't mind the words of child." Xiao Ju looked at her calmly and said, "Aren't you afraid of me now?" "I've never been afraid of you." He Yin smiled and said, "Anyway, you know my secret now." She was like a scoundrel. "Besides, when we fought on the mountain just now, I wasn't any worse than you. Your sword was even cut into two by my saber." Although she cheated, Xiao Ju smiled and thought of something else. "What about your sword?" Xiao Ju asked. "What are you going to do about your sword?" He Yan's smile froze. Her sword was the Qinglang sword. Rather than saying that Xiao Ju was asking her what to do with her sword, it was more accurate to say that she was asking her what she planned to do with the Su family and the He family. "When I got into trouble, it was the Su family and the He family who conspired together. He Rufei is a fake General Feihong. I have to expose this matter. During the battle at Huayuan, he tampered with the Fuyue army and caused the deaths of his trusted subordinates. I have to settle this score with him." He Yan's eyes were cold and sharp. "I originally wanted to keep Mother Qin as a witness. There are still remnants of the Huayuan battle. If we search carefully, we might be able to find their whereabouts. Compared to He Rufei, Su Zhiheng's side is easier to deal with. As long as someone can prove that Su Zhiheng plotted to murder young Mistress Su, Su Zhiheng will definitely drag He Rufei down when he is in danger. At that time, we just have to follow the vine to find the melon, and this matter will be solved." He Yin looked at Xiao Ju and asked, "What do you think?" Since her rebirth, she had been keeping her secret from others. Now that she suddenly had an ally, she suddenly felt relaxed. Even if Xiao Ju didn't do anything, as long as she had someone with her along the way, it would increase her strength. Sowing dissension? He Yan's eyes lit up. Dissension would cause the enemy to suspect each other. Sowing dissension would cause dissension between enemies. Then should we send someone to He Rufei's side, or to Su Zhiheng's side? He Yan pondered. Either side is fine. Xiao Ju said, "I don't have that many people to use." "I do." Xiao Ju glanced at her. "I'll help you." He Yan's lips curled up again. Suddenly, She thought of something and complained, "But why didn't you tell me that you sent someone to investigate Mother Qin? It wasn't easy for me to bribe the Su family servant, Fu Wang, and spend a lot of money on him. If I had known that you had already found out, I wouldn't have wasted my money. Now all the money is gone." "Hien," Xiaoju interrupted her. "Do you have no money?" "Ahem." Hien put her fist to her lips and coughed. "It's not that I don't have any money at all." The next moment, there was a stack of banknotes on the table. Hien's eyes widened. She swallowed and looked away with difficulty. "I don't deserve it." Xiaoju raised her eyebrows. "You really don't want it?" Hien quickly grabbed it and stuffed it into her clothes. "Take it as a loan. I have a salary now. I'll return it to you when I get my salary." "No need," Xiaoju said. "You can keep it for yourself. If you don't have enough, you can come to me." Hien had lived for 2 lifetimes, but this was the first time she had experienced the feeling of squandering money like water. Although she didn't lack money in her previous life when she was in the He family, she didn't experience the feeling of being a hedonistic son. Later on, when she performed a meritorious service, the emperor rewarded her with a lot of rewards. But today, in the military camp, she borrowed a little from one of her brothers, and that friend's family had difficulties. In the end, there wasn't much left, and she gave it all to the He family. After she entered the Su family, she had to be a virtuous wife, but she couldn't be extravagant. Moreover, she was blind not long after, and the power of the family was in He Wanru's hands. She didn't even have a shadow of money. Now that she finally had a taste, it was not bad. "Xiaoju, you're really a good person," Hien flattered. "You're more kind than the Buddha of Yuhua Temple." Xiaoju sneered. "You think that whoever gives you money is a good person? That's not it." Hien said, "But other people ask me for things. There are very few people who are willing to give me things." She supported her chin with her hand and looked at Xiaoju. "You don't seem to have asked me for anything." In her previous life, she had always been giving, whether actively or passively, emotionally or financially. Only this person in front of her had always silently given and never asked for anything. Xiaoju lowered her eyes and looked at her. After a while, she suddenly said, "You feel wronged, don't you?" Hien straightened up. "What? You suffered a lot and gave the glory that you fought for to others. You're willing to return to the time when you had nothing. Don't you feel wronged?" he asked. Hien was stunned for a moment. After a long silence, she said, "In the past, I would feel that way, but now I don't." She smiled. "I have old man He, Yunsheng, Qingmei Xiaomai, Shirtu Wangba, and the others in you. It's much better than the previous life." "Really, Xiaoju," she said seriously, "I don't feel wronged." Xiaoju stared at her for a moment. After a while, she turned her head and said, "Idiot." He didn't think much of it. "Then you're still being fooled by the idiot. When we were in the Liang Province Guards, I knew who you were from the beginning. Second young master, Xiao, military governor Xiao, secretly taught me swordsmanship when we were classmates. Who would believe that you did a good deed without leaving your name? Everyone will think that second young master Xiao has ulterior motives for me. And the mole on your waist, TSK. Xiaoju's face stiffened. "Are you rebelling?" he asked. "It's the truth." Hien spread her hands. Xiaoju stood up and was about to leave. "Oh, are you angry?" Hien hurriedly pulled on his sleeve and apologized. "I was wrong. I shouldn't have made fun of you. Military Governor Xiao, don't be angry. I apologize to you. What do I have to do for you to forgive me?" Xiaoju's footsteps paused, and he suddenly turned around. Hien was sitting in front of the table and was startled by Xiaoju's sudden turn. The two of them were extremely far apart. Xiaoju bent over to Hien and said with a smile that was not a smile, "Is that so?" Hien stared at him blankly and nodded subconsciously. He leaned closer and smiled slightly. "Okay, let's get married as soon as possible." Hien was stunned. The young man's handsome face was right in front of him. His eyes were so deep that it seemed to suck him in. "Hirufei has begun to suspect your identity. It's too dangerous for you to be alone. I want to protect you." Almost 15 minutes after Xiaoju left, Hien was still sitting in front of the table, thinking about what he said before he left. Yunxing frowned as soon as he came in. He asked, "Hien, did you pick up money or treasure? Why are you smiling so creepily?" He turned around and rubbed his face. He asked doubtfully, "Did I smile?" Yunsheng sighed and sat down in front of the table. No wonder Dad looks at General Fengyan like a fat sheep. With your qualifications, he must have a problem with his eyes or his brain to take a fancy to you. He picked up a leaf and threw it at him. How can you talk about your elder sister like that? Do you look like an elder sister? Yunsheng looked at him with disdain. You even pulled him into your room. Dad and I are also men. Cough. Why don't you pay more attention? Why are you even more old-fashioned than Dad? Ian was puzzled. You're so young, yet you're like an old man. I pulled him in because we have something important to discuss. What are you thinking? Yunsheng said impatiently. I don't care about you. I came here to discuss the dowry with you. Ian, what? The youth's face was filled with genuine distress. Now that the emperor has bestowed the marriage, I have no choice but to get married. Xiao family is rich. Our family can barely support ourselves. I'm still in school, so I can't work to earn money like before. Although you're an official, you've been fined a year's salary. Now, only Dad is receiving wages to earn money. Originally, Dad and I saved the money you gave me for your future. Who knew that you'd find such a family? That money might not be enough, so what I mean is, what do you mean? Postpone the wedding date. When I start earning money in the future and earn enough for your dowry, you can marry into Xiao family. Her silly younger brother, was really a genius. He could even come up with this kind of idea. Fortunately, Xiao Ju was not here. If she heard it, Yunsheng would tear down her words right after she said that they should get married as soon as possible. Isn't it just money? Yin said, at most, I'll go to Lu Tong village again. You dare? Yunsheng said angrily, it's fine in the past. Now, you're a famous person. How can you still fool around like you did in the past? If military governor Xiao finds out about this, what will he think of you? Yin thought. Xiao Ju had already seen the picture with her. What else would he think of her? He'll think of her however he wants. Children don't know much and make a fuss about nothing. However, she also knew that this was how the youth was, so she said, fine, I won't go. Isn't it about money? She took out a stack of banknotes. This was the banknotes that Xiao Ju had given her just now. I have a lot of banknotes here. Yunsheng was stunned for a moment. Where did you get the banknotes? I borrowed them from Xiao Ju, Yin said righteously. If it's not enough, I'll ask him for more. Are you crazy? Yunsheng reprimanded. You borrowed his money to prepare your own dowry? Do you think this is reasonable? It's not reasonable, but you don't have to be so surprised. Yin looked at him with a smile. Actually, the dowry is not a big deal. You have to know that in this world, anything that can be solved with money is not a big deal. In reality, Xiao Ju did not care about the secret that she had died once, or that she was General Fei Hong. Either of these was more shocking than the dowry. But since Xiao Ju did not care about it, then there was really no need to worry about the money. I know that you are experienced and knowledgeable, Yunsheng patiently comforted her. But when other women get married in Shuo Jing City, if they don't have a dowry, they will be looked down upon and gossiped by their husbands. But when other women get married in Shuo Jing City, they have to rely on their husbands to support them. Yin said, I have a salary. You are being punished now. I have a salary. Our family background is not high. I have a salary. Yunsheng was refuted by Yin and finally said, fine, you have a salary. In the end, you don't want to postpone the wedding date, right? You like General Fengyan that much. Didn't you say it yourself? Yin tilted her head and looked at him. If you were a woman, you would only love him. Yunsheng choked and coughed. He swung his sleeves and stood up. Forget it. I think you are already so smitten that you won't listen to anything I say. Forget it. I will think of a way with father about the dowry. You take care of yourself. Yunsheng left. Yin sighed in relief. She lay on her back on the couch as she recalled Xiao Ju's words. Marriage. In her previous life, she was full of hope and expectation when she married another person, but the ending was frustrating. But this time, when she heard it from Xiao Ju's mouth, she did not feel too much resistance or disgust. It was as if it was her, she would still have hope. However, it was not only that. Xiao Ju was right. The current situation in Shuo Jing City was not stable. She had to deal with the He family and the Su family. With her current identity as Marquis Wuan, there were many restrictions. On Xiao Ju's side, Su Jingfu and the Crown Prince were also eyeing covetously. Yudo would enter the capital in a few days. The battle between the Crown Prince and the Fourth Prince had not yet ended. A storm was brewing into Wei. No one knew what the outcome would be. Just as Xiao Ju said, she also wanted to protect him. Xiao Ju returned to the mansion. He came back late. Xiao Jing and Bai Rongwei had already gone to bed. These years, he did not spend much time in Shua Jing City. Even when he came back every year, he would leave early and return late. His brother and sister-in-law were already used to it. But the kitchen would always prepare hot food for him so that he would not have nothing to eat at night. The snow in the courtyard had been swept clean. He walked into the room, put drinking autumn on the table, and took off his outer robe. Fei Nu followed him in. Go to the Su family tomorrow, Xiao Ju said. Fei Nu was stunned. Young master, the Su family is not being watched by Luaning. I'm not asking you to investigate, Xiao Ju said. Go find the Su family's gatekeeper, Fu Wang. Give him a sum of money and make a deal with him. Fei Nu was stunned and nodded. Xiao Ju whispered a few more words to him. Fei Nu's face showed a bit of surprise. Although he did not understand why Xiao Ju wanted him to do this, he did not say anything and left the room. He sighed softly, and his gaze fell on the drinking autumn sword hanging on the wall. He Yan's identity meant that he could only be cautious in his revenge and could not do it to his heart's content. But even if the He family and the Su family were allowed to live in this world for one more day, it would still make him unhappy. He Yan could do some things that were inconvenient for him to do. There were some underhanded methods that He Yan didn't want to use, but he didn't care. Xiao Ju stood up and walked in front of the drinking autumn sword. He reached out and touched the scabbard. The scabbard was as cold as snow. The youth looked down thoughtfully. The most precious things for a warrior on the battlefield were the war horse under him and the treasured sword in his hand. If he lost his treasured sword, it would be like a beast losing its teeth and fangs. This fool's past life was actually a process of constant loss. Even now, he wanted to take back everything that belonged to her. Even more. Chapter 219. The next morning, He Yan woke up slightly later than usual. Last night, she kept thinking about things and couldn't fall asleep. She only fell asleep in the middle of the night. When she woke up, it was already late in the morning. It wasn't snowing today, so the sun was out. After washing up, she went to the main room to eat. As soon as she walked in, she almost bit her tongue. Why are you here? He Yan asked. Someone was sitting at the table in the main room, drinking tea. Qing Mei stood at the side. When she saw He Yan, she answered anxiously. His Excellency came over early in the morning. He told me not to wake you up and to wait here for you to wake up. Xiao Ju put down the teacup in her hand. She glanced at her and asked, Did you sleep well? It was okay. He Yan scratched her head. She felt that Xiao Ju's sudden appearance was very shocking. She subconsciously looked at the roof. This was her house, not the Liang province guards. Qing Mei put the porridge and dishes on the table. He Yan looked and said in surprise, Qing Mei, did you get rich? So much food? These seem to be snacks from Qinxiangji, right? His Excellency sent someone to deliver these. Qing Mei answered uneasily. Originally, the He family ate simple breakfast. It had been more than 10 years, so no one felt that there was anything wrong with it. Today, Xiao Ju sent someone to deliver such a large table of food. Qing Mei felt embarrassed and wondered if her family was too shabby. He Yan didn't feel anything. It wasn't the first time she took advantage of Xiao Ju. She immediately applauded and praised. Xiao Ju, you're so considerate. No wonder Yin Nangguang always said that having a wife is good. You're even better than Princess Shang. I can't find a single flaw. Qi Wu, who was standing in the corner, trembled when he heard this. Was this something a human would say? That was a little too shameless. It was a pity that their young master was bewitched to the point of confusion, but he actually looked quite happy. Have you eaten? He Yan gave Xiao Ju a pair of chopsticks. Let's eat together. Xiao Ju took the chopsticks. Okay. Qi Wu. She finally knew why her master had left the Xiao manor without eating breakfast. She had woken up so early to freeload her own food. He was really bored out of his mind. Usually, The He family didn't discriminate between master and servant. Qing Mei also ate together at the same table. But today, Xiao Ju was here. Qing Mei wouldn't come to the table, even if she was beaten to death. After hesitating for a while, she dragged Qi Wu away and said that she wanted to sweep the snow. Ian had no choice but to eat with Xiao Ju. Qing Mei's porridge was fragrant and soft. She had added red dates, so it was sweet. Ian remembered that this person didn't seem to like sweet things when she grew up. He asked, "I forgot that you don't like sweet things." She reached out her chopsticks and took the red dates from Xiao Ju's bowl. She smiled and said, "I'll help you." Xiao Ju paused. Xiao family members knew that he was very particular about cleanliness. He didn't like to use things that others had used, let alone pick food from his bowl. Even Xiao Jing couldn't do it. But Yin did this, so he didn't stop her. "But you didn't come here today just to eat breakfast with me, right?" Yin asked. "What's the matter?" "I plan to go to the Xian Chong dojo." Xiao Ju said, "You'll come with me." Yin was stunned. "Why are we going to the Xian Chong dojo?" "Since you want to expose He Rufei's identity, you need evidence. The Xian Chong dojo still has your past essays and scrolls. Maybe they can be of use." "How is that possible?" Yin asked curiously. "Those are things from many years ago. How can the Xian Chong dojo still keep them?" Xiao Ju pulled the corners of her mouth and looked at her with a mischievous smile. "Don't you know? General Fei Hong and General Feng Yun's calligraphy has been kept in the dojo until today. Every year, when new students come to the spring enrollment, everyone has to look at it." Yin almost choked on his own words. "Are you serious? My calligraphy?" Heaven and earth. Xiao Ju was fine, but her calligraphy back then could not be considered very beautiful. Her handwriting was like a dog's crawl, but it was an exam paper that was always last place. What is there to look at? Over and over again, wasn't insulting? Who would have thought that the last place in the Xian Chong dojo would one day be on par with the first place and become the dojo's signboard? Sure enough, don't bully the young for being poor. Every dog has its day. "I actually don't really want to go," Xiao Ju said. "Oh." Ian made a sad face. "Okay, I'll go." After the meal, Ian and Xiao Ju went out together. He didn't feel this way when he was in the Liang Province Guards. But once he returned to the capital and put on Lady He's dress, he felt uncomfortable all over. It wasn't because of anything else. It was because Lady He's dress was too exquisite and complicated. Ian decided to simplify the complicated dress and put away all the straps. It was more convenient to go out. There was no carriage at the door. Ian paused and asked the person beside him, "Xiao Ju, where's the carriage? The weather is good today. Let's go," he said. It was a rare sunny day. The snow from last night hadn't melted, and the ground was glowing with golden warmth. When they walked under the sun, they felt that the haze of the past few days had been swept away. Their bodies felt warm from head to toe. Ian closed his eyes comfortably and said, "It would be great if it was this warm every day." Xiao Ju turned her head and glanced at him. The young girl had a bright smile. A little sunlight was enough to make her happy. It was hard to imagine that the brave and fierce General Fei Hong on the battlefield was this silly person in front of him. The corners of his mouth curved slightly, and he restrained the smile in his eyes. The two of them walked side by side on the street. Even though Yin wasn't very famous, Xiao Ju's face wasn't unfamiliar. People recognized him from afar. Although they didn't dare to approach him, they still pointed and discussed in secret. "Isn't that General Feng Yun, Military Governor Xiao? Who's the girl beside him? I don't think I've seen her before." When did Military Governor Xiao walk side by side with a girl in the daytime? She must be the fiancée that His Majesty has bestowed upon him. "Fiancée? Are you talking about the Marquis, Yin?" That's right, that's right. So Marquis Wuan looks like this. She looks so soft and weak. How did she get on the battlefield?" Yan's hearing was outstanding. He accidentally heard the discussions around him. Yan looked at the man walking beside him. His expression was calm and indifferent. Yan inexplicably felt that he had been brought out by Xiao Ju to show his face, so that people would know that Xiao Ju's fiancé, Marquis Wuan, looked like this. "Forget it," she said to herself in her heart. "If they want to see, then let them see. In the past, when she wore a mask, she had to hide. Now that she was openly using this face, even if there were people who wanted to substitute her, it would be impossible. Along the way, they were surrounded by people. After walking for a long time, the two of them finally arrived at the entrance of the Xianchang Pavilion. Years had passed since they parted, but the Xianchang Pavilion still looked the same as before. The mottled door, the familiar plaque, and the apricot tree at the entrance bent under the weight of the snow. Hien looked and felt a little emotional. Her days in the Xianchang Pavilion were not very relaxing. Now that she thought about it, it was full of happy memories. The teachers here taught her to be reasonable and righteous. Otherwise, a girl who couldn't distinguish right from wrong and disguised as a man, even if she was a chess piece of the He family, would still be an ignorant chess piece that couldn't control her own fate. The most correct thing He Yuansheng had done in his life was to send her to the virtuous prosperity dojo, which changed her life. "Let's go," Xiaoju said. The two of them walked in together. As soon as they walked into the courtyard, they heard the sound of students reading in the academy. The way of the university is to be virtuous, to be close to the people, and to stop doing good deeds. After so many years, you're still memorizing this. He suddenly recalled the memories of improving together with Lin Shuanghe. It's strange. At that time, I couldn't memorize it no matter how hard I tried. Later, after I joined the army, I recited it every night when I had nothing to do in the camp. Then I memorized it. Xiao Ju raised her eyebrows. "You memorized it in the camp?" "Of course," Hien said proudly. "In the beginning, before I met my master, my skills were not good, so I could only rely on my brain. You don't know, but in the Fuyue army, anyone who can read is very popular in the camp. They're good at both the pen and the sword." She began to praise herself again. Xiao Ju was about to say something when she suddenly heard someone's voice in front of them. "Military Governor Xiao." The two of them looked in the direction of the voice and saw a middle-aged man wearing yellow hemp clothes quickly walking over. This man was very gentle and had an amiable appearance. When he walked in front of Xiao Ju and Hien, he smiled and said, "Military Governor Xiao, why did you think of coming to the academy today?" Hien was stunned. This was Huang Sankai, the teacher who taught mathematics in the Xianchang Academy. Hien had also taught mathematics in the past. During Hien's school life, because she was not outstanding in any aspect, it was very difficult for her to gain the teacher's favor. This Mr. Huang Sankai, perhaps because he was not very old at the time, was very gentle and amiable to his students. He did not treat his students differently because of their grades and was very accommodating. It was also this teacher who used to praise Hien in the academy. Diligent learning is like a sprout in spring. You don't see it growing, but it grows day by day. Look at He Rufei. You should all learn from him. Because of this, a group of youths were dissatisfied with Hien. However, when he saw this Mr. Huang, Hien still felt very close. "I was passing by here, so I came to take a look," Xiao Ju replied. Huang Sankai showed an expression of pride. "Please come in, please come in." Don't blame this teacher for showing a fawning expression. Xiao Ju was now Dewey's famous General Feng Yun and the commander-in-chief of the Right Army. The reason why he did not get promoted was because even if he won the war, His Majesty did not have a higher position to promote him. Moreover, when he was in the Xianchang Academy, instead of saying that the teachers were teaching Xiao Ju, it was more accurate to say that Xiao Ju came to the Xianchang Academy to go through the motions. The teachers in the Xianchang Academy did not have anything to teach him. In order to avoid causing a commotion among the students, Hien and Xiao Ju went to the teacher's room. The teachers rested in this spacious room during the day and only attended 3 classes a day. Today's class was literature, mathematics, and etiquette. Tomorrow's class was bow, horse, and saber. When Hien and Xiao Ju walked in, there was no one else in the room. Huang Sankai first poured a cup of tea for the two of them and invited them to sit down. Then he got up and fiddled with the stove in the room. The stove in the room was warm, and a cup of hot tea was very comfortable. "I did not expect Military Governor Xiao to be here today." Huang Sankai smiled and looked at Hien. "This is Marquis Wu and Miss He?" Yin quickly got up and bowed. Yin greets teacher. She was bowing to the teacher as a student, but it gave Huang Sankai a fright. He quickly got up and bowed back. Missy is too polite. Please sit down. Yin sat down. Huang Sankai smiled and said to Yin, when military governor Xiao was a teenager, he was very popular with girls. However, I have never seen him treat anyone differently. At that time, I was wondering what kind of woman his future wife would be. Now, that group of brats have all settled down and gotten married, but I don't see any movement from him. Now that the dust has settled, I can be at ease. This Miss He, Huang Sankai, said to Yin, is very different from ordinary girls. I have stayed in Shuajing for so many years and have seen countless girls. However, Missy is the first one I have seen. Military Governor Zhao's eyes are really sharp. Yin, Huang Sankai probably did not expect that the girl he was praising was a student that he had personally taught in the past. As they were talking, the door opened and someone came in. The two looked over at the same time and saw a thin old man wearing a brown robe and a high bun walk in. Mr. Wei, Huang Sankai stood up and said to the old man, Military Governor Xiao and his fiancée, Miss He, are here. Wei Xianzhong, the curator of the Xianchang Hall, looked at the two. Yin and Xiao Ju stood up and bowed to him. Wei Xianzhong was not as friendly as Huang Sankai. He only nodded slightly, walked to his desk, and sat down. He put down the book in his hand. He was the one who was in class just now. Yin leaned closer to Xiao Ju and whispered, Look, the person I am most afraid of is here. When Yin was in school, he was most afraid of this Mr. Wei, Curator Wei. Wei Xianzhong was not a commoner. He had an official position. However, Yin once thought that the reason why he founded the Xianchang Hall was because his personality was too unlikable. He was old-fashioned and strict. His colleagues in the officialdom did not like him, so they rushed him to be the curator of the school. Unlike Huang Sankai, who was gentle and amiable and never scolded students, Wei Xianzhong was excessively strict. As long as there were students with bad grades, they would always be punished by him. The students secretly called him Old Man Wei. As Yin was the last in the Xianchang Hall, Wei Xianzhong naturally saw her as the shame of the Xianchang Hall. Yin believed that if it wasn't for He Yuansheng persuading the Shibao and the fact that the Xianchang Hall didn't have the rule of driving out the accepted students, she would have been driven out by Wei Xianzhong on the first day she entered the Xianchang Hall. She would never be allowed to step into the school again. In short, in the memories of this gentleman, Yin could only remember the unpleasant memories of being beaten, punished, scolded, and copying books. Even though she was no longer studying in the school and was not afraid of facing the Yudo, Yin still felt a chill down her spine the moment she saw this old gentleman. This is Miss He, Huang Sankai said with a smile. Wei Xianzhong picked up the tea on the table and took a sip. His scrutinizing gaze swept over Yin's body and said with a straight face, You are Yin? How can a woman join the army to fight and show her face in public? Yin, ? She didn't study anymore, but this old man Wei still wanted to pick on her and find trouble with her. Yin smiled and said, It's just that the situation forced me to do so. Eating and living with a man is immoral and unorthodox. You don't know the rules at all. Xiao Huaijin has always been clean and honest. How could he be coaxed into the hands of a woman like you? Yin, Huang Sankai wiped his sweat awkwardly. Curator, Mr. Wei is too serious. Xiao Ju said lightly, Missy didn't coax me. I like her first. Wei Xianzhong furrowed his brows and looked at Xiao Ju with even more disappointment. A real man talks about love and love all day long. What's wrong with him? He then glared fiercely at Yin. Femme fatale. Yin's smile stiffened. After living for 2 lifetimes, this was the first time someone called her a femme fatale. She took it as a compliment. But the way old man Wei looked at her, it was as if she was the demoness who brought disaster to the country. Xiao Ju was the fatuous ruler of the country. Could it be that her last-place temperament had already seeped into her bones? Even if she changed her body, as long as Wei Xianzhong saw her, he would still dislike her from the bottom of his heart. We came here today to ask for a favor. Yin changed the topic. If she continued, she was afraid that old man Wei would use a long stick to chase them away. Huang Sankai asked, "What is it?" "We want to borrow the brush and ink that he Rufei left in the academy," Xiao Ju said. When she said this, Wei Xianzhong and Huang Sankai looked at her in surprise. "What does military governor Xiao want to borrow he Rufei's brush and ink for?" Huang Sankai asked. "It's me." He Yin laughed. "I've always heard that General Fei Hong is a great general who is as famous as the governor. My heart is filled with admiration. I also heard that they used to be classmates, so I wanted to see the traces of General Fei Hong's past." "Nonsense. Ridiculous." Wei Xianzhong slammed the table. His face was green with anger. He pointed at He Yin and said, "How can you be like this, like this?" He Yin guessed what he wanted to say and thoughtfully reminded him, "Zhao Qin Mu Chu Zhao San Mu Si." "You." Wei Xianzhong was furious. He turned and looked at Xiao Ju. "Xiao Huaijin, this is the wife you chose." The corner of Xiao Ju's mouth twitched and she said, "It's nonsense. Sir, don't take it to heart. Please take a look at He Rufei's brush and ink first. He Rufei is a student of my Xianchang Academy." Wei Xianzhong flicked his sleeves and said, "He is also a famous general of Dawei. How can his brush and ink be seen by just anyone?" He Yin thought to himself. He didn't expect her to be so important in Wei Xuanzhang's heart. For a moment, he was touched, and his resentment towards this old man disappeared. "I'm not asking as a student," Xiao Ju said calmly. "I'm asking as the governor of the Right Army." Huang Sankai shuddered. He knew that when this young master was in the Xianchang Academy, although he didn't seem to cause trouble, he was definitely not an obedient person. Most of the time, he was just too lazy to do it. Now that he was talking about his official position, the Xianchang Academy couldn't act rashly in front of the Right Army's governor for the time being. He pulled Wei Xianzhong and squeezed out a smile. "What are you saying? If military governor Xiao wants to see it, he can do so at any time. General He's brush and ink are stored in the study. The two of you, please follow me." Wei Xianzhong was furious. Huang Sankai, curator Huang Sankai leaned closer to him and whispered, "That's Commander-in-Chief Xiao we're talking about. Besides, most of the students who attend the spring recruitment every year are here because of Commander-in-Chief Xiao and General He. If we offend Military Governor Xiao, in the future, Military Governor Xiao will spread the word that everyone else will go to the Imperial College. What kind of talents will our Xianchang Academy be able to recruit?" Wei Xianzhong didn't speak. He only knew how to teach and didn't know anything about politics or business. Ordinary chores were taken care of by Huang Sankai. At this moment, when he heard Huang Sansai's words, he knew that what he said was reasonable. In the end, he couldn't keep his face. He snorted and left in a huff. "Mr. Wei is just a bit old-fashioned. He doesn't have any ill intentions." Huang Sankai didn't forget to rope in He Yin. "Miss He, please don't take it to heart." "I know." He Yin smiled and said, "I won't take it to heart." "That's good." Huang Sankai brought the two of them into the library of the Xianchang Academy and left first. The library had a total of 3 floors. The topmost floor retained the brushes and ink left behind by the students in the past. In the past few years, the most famous people in the Xianchang Academy were He Yin and Xiao Ju. Therefore, the scrolls, paintings they left behind were sealed on the same shelf. The top row was Xiao Ju's, and the bottom row was He Yan's. He Yin took out a stack of exam papers and casually took out one. It was mathematics, and a C was clearly drawn on it. The paper was full of mistakes. The moment He Yin saw it, she subconsciously hid the exam paper behind her back. Xiao Ju glanced at her and sneered. "It's not like you haven't seen it before. Why are you hiding it?" He Yin pursed her lips and thought for a while. Then she said, "I think it's unfair." Xiao Ju took out a book and casually flipped through it. "What's unfair? Think about it." He Yin answered seriously. "When you met me, I was at the lowest point of my life. I didn't know anything and I wasn't good at anything. What you saw was the worst version of me. When I went to the battlefield, I knew everything. You didn't see me at my best. But when I saw you, you were always so good." He Yin said, "Don't you think it's unfair?" Xiao Ju laughed. Just as she was about to speak, she suddenly looked downstairs and her expression changed slightly. Someone came in. It can't be, He Yin whispered. Didn't Mr. Huang tell us to look for books ourselves? Why did he let other students in? If those students saw us, wouldn't it be lively again? But soon, she realized that this was not the case. The footsteps coming up the stairs obviously belonged to someone who knew martial arts. Xiao Ju and He Yin looked at each other, and the two of them quickly hid behind another row of bookshelves. The distance between the bookshelves was very narrow. Only one person could pass through at a time. The two of them hid in the corner and had to face each other. Xiao Ju was very tall. He Yin raised his head slightly and almost touched her chin. As the two of them breathed in and out, they could almost hear each other's heartbeat. He Yin's palms couldn't help but sweat. He couldn't help but feel nervous. But this nervousness only lasted for a moment. Her gaze froze. The person who had sneaked up the stairs quickly rushed to the row of bookshelves that they were standing on. Then he took out a flint and lit the row of bookshelves that He Yin was standing on. With a tongue sound, the fire ignited. He Yin and Xiao Ju flew out. Stop! Chapter 220. The person who set the fire did not expect that there would be someone in the quiet library today. He was caught off guard and wanted to run, but Xiao Ju had already blocked his way. He was no match for her in martial arts. After exchanging one move, Xiao Ju dislocated his arm. He had already grabbed a long blanket to put out the fire when Xiao Ju was exchanging blows with the person. Fortunately, the fire was not big. The person probably thought that the library was easy to set on fire, so he did not use ointment. Otherwise, the two of them might not have been able to put out the fire. The fire was put out in time, so only half of the books were burned. He Yin shook his head at Xiao Ju. Fortunately, nothing serious happened. The two of them looked at the person on the ground. He was young and wore a cotton shirt. At first glance, he looked like a student from the Xianchang school. His arms and legs were dislocated by Xiao Ju, so he could not move for the time being. He Yin noticed that there were traces of martial arts training between his thumb and index finger. He could not help but frown. He doesn't look like a student from the Xianchang school. He must have snuck in. Ordinary students, even if there were martial arts courses in the school, would not have such thick calluses. It was obvious that they were caused by years of martial arts training. Xiao Ju looked down at him and asked coldly, "Who sent you?" The person only stared at Xiao Ju and did not speak. Wait a minute. Ian seemed to have sensed something. He stepped forward and grabbed the person's chin. Xiao Ju could not stop him. Ian said he can't speak. He's a mute. The person was forced to open his mouth. His mouth was empty except for half of his tongue. It's very dangerous. Xiao Ju pulled her up and pulled her behind. Don't get too close. The other party found a mute and deliberately snuck into the Xianchang school just to set the library on fire. Tian's attention was not on himself. He looked at Xiao Ju. It seems that someone has the same idea as us. Although there were rare and unique books in the hidden book pavilion, it was not enough to make people take the risk. What's more, the other party didn't send people to steal, but to set fire. Coincidentally, the one that was set on fire was the one that He Rufei had used. Just like how He Yin and Xiao Ju came to the Xianchang mansion today to find He Rufei's past handwriting in case of an emergency. The real young master, he also looked guilty and short of breath, which was why he couldn't wait to get someone to destroy the corpse. Xiao Ju asked, "What are your plans?" He Yin lowered his head and thought for a while. When he raised his head again, his expression had become relaxed. Since someone covets General He's notes, why don't we keep them for them first? As for this person, let's inform Mr. Huang first and see what he has to say. When Huang Sankai received the news and came over, he couldn't believe his eyes. He had only let Xiao Ju and He Yin into the hidden book pavilion for less than a stick of incense's time. How could someone suddenly set fire to it? Mr. Huang, Xiao Ju gestured to the person on the ground. Is this person a student of the school? Mr. Huang carefully looked at the face of the person who set the fire and shook his head. No, I've never seen this person before. Then that's it, Xiao Ju nodded. This person snuck into the school and just failed to set fire to it. I saw it. Mr. Huang hurriedly went to check the bookshelf that had just caught fire. The scattered test papers on the ground, the half-burnt book, and the smell of burnt wood in the pavilion all proved that Xiao Ju was not lying. Just now, someone did set fire to it. Why? Huang Sankai was at a loss. What enmity does this person have with our Xianchang school? Why did he set fire to the hidden book pavilion? Fortunately, it was the hidden book pavilion and not the school. But just now, if Xiao Ju and Hien were not here, very few people would enter the hidden book pavilion. By the time the fire was discovered, it would be too late. Thinking of this, Huang Sansai's heart was filled with a layer of fear. This person is mute, Hien laughed. He can't speak. Xiao Ju's voice was cold. I'm afraid it has something to do with the Yudo. Yudo? Huang Sankai was shocked. Why would the Yudo appear in Shuajing? Xiao Ju calmly said, this matter is confidential. I hope Mr. Huang can keep it a secret for me. Since it is the Yudo's conspiracy, it is better to beat them at their own game. Mr. Huang, please announce to the public that the hidden book pavilion caught fire and destroyed a shelf of books. Fortunately, the fire was put out in time and did not lead to a disaster. But General Fei Hong's notes were all destroyed. Huang Sankai was still very puzzled. This is related to the country. Xiao Ju's eyes were as sharp as lightning. I hope Mr. Huang can consider the overall situation. Huang Sankai trembled. Of course. But General He's notes. He and I are classmates. It is just some ordinary pen and ink. I will bring it back to Xiao family for safekeeping. In the future, when the real culprit behind the scenes is revealed, I will return it to you. Huang Sankai sensed something. He looked at the young man in front of him. The young man who was always lazy and indifferent had now shed his youthfulness. He was like an unsheathed sword, completely different from the past. He respectfully lowered his head and whispered, it is all up to Military Governor Xiao. As for this person, I will take care of it. Mr. Huang only needs to announce to the public that someone was burned to death in the fire. Huang Sankai nodded in agreement. After Huang Sankai finished his task, Chi Wu came in and took away the mute who had set the fire. He also took away a whole sack of Hirufei's notes. Hien and Xiao Ju walked out. As they walked, he said, Xiao Ju, what happened just now? Is it okay? In the end, Huang Sankai was not a member of the Xiao family. He did not know how much he could keep secret for them. Hirufei was not a fool either. The people they sent out did not return. Even if Huang Sankai spread the news that the library was on fire, Hirufei might not believe it. It's okay. Leave it to me, Xiao Ju replied. Hien thought for a moment. I think that Su Zhiheng is probably still looking for Mother Qin's whereabouts. We must ensure their safety. Xiao Ju smiled carelessly. Don't worry. The Su family's hands cannot reach into the Xiao family. Hien was slightly relieved. However, today's relaxed visit to the Xianchang Pavilion to reminisce about old friends was disrupted by this sudden incident. He could not help but feel a bit heavy. As he walked to the door with Xiao Ju, he suddenly heard someone call out to her, Missy. Hien looked up and saw a man wearing an indigo robe standing not far away. He was as gentle as an orchid. It was Chu Zhao. He also saw Xiao Ju standing next to Hien. His eyes narrowed slightly, but his smile returned to normal. He walked forward and greeted Military Governor Xiao, Missy. Fourth young Master Chu, why are you here? Hien asked with a smile. Ever since that day at the palace banquet where Emperor Wen Xian bestowed the marriage, she had not seen Chu Zhao. She only knew that the Su family and the Chu family were preparing for his marriage with Su Pingting. Compared to Hien's family background, Chu Zhao and Su Pingting's marriage, on the surface, seemed to be more well-matched. Although, Hien did not think that Chu Zhao liked Su Pingting, his fiancée, that much. I came out to do something, Chu Zhao replied gently. Hien noticed that the servant following him today was an unfamiliar servant. Her appearance was average and was nodding Xiang. He could not help but look at the servant a few more times. The servant was not afraid. She stared back at him with a look of scrutiny. Hien pondered for a moment and understood. Presumably, Miss Su Pingting saw that Xiang was too beautiful by Chu Zhao's side. She was not at ease, so she sent another servant to follow him. On the surface, she was serving him, but in reality, she was monitoring him. After all, Chu Zhao had a dissolute father. His own appearance was outstanding, so it was inevitable that she would think more. However, Chu Zhao was a little pitiful. As a man, he could not even decide whether to keep his servant by his side. Today was just the beginning. Once he got married, that Miss Su Pingting would only become worse. The maidservant also looked at Yin with a bit of vigilance, as if Chu Zhao was a big fat piece of greasy meat, and all the women on the street were like hungry dogs, staring at him very closely. Yin did not want to get into trouble, nor did he want to be a target for others. He said, "Xiao Ju and I still have something to do. We will leave first." When Chu Zhao heard the two words Xiao Ju, he was stunned. His eyes looked at the two of them, and then he smiled. "Then, let's meet again another day." Yin nodded and pulled Xiao Ju away in a hurry. After the two of them left, Chu Zhao looked at the door of the Xianchang pavilion. His eyes flashed with a trace of deep thought. The servant girl beside him urged, "Fourth young master, it's not early. You should go to the silk shop to choose cloth first." Miss said that all matters related to the wedding must be seen by fourth young master. The young man covered the haze in his eyes and smiled. "Okay." At the Su family's door, the servant Fu Wang was holding a broom and was currently sweeping the floor. He had been absent-minded for the entire afternoon. In fact, it had not been a day or two. Ever since he told the other party about Mother Qin's whereabouts, the mysterious person who was generous had not appeared again. Fu Wang felt very disappointed. He originally wanted to make a big profit from this person before leaving. He did not expect that he would disappear. He felt a bit of regret. He should not have told the other party about Mother Qin's whereabouts so early. Perhaps if he had delayed a bit longer, he could have squeezed more out of the other party. Once he got used to the easy way of getting money, Fu Wang felt particularly unsatisfied when he looked back at the meager monthly allowance. He swept the floor. Suddenly, a copper coin rolled in front of him. Fu Wang subconsciously followed it. He wanted to pick it up, but after taking a few steps, the copper coin was suddenly stepped on by a boot. He was startled. He raised his head and saw a tall man wearing a bamboo hat standing in front of him. The man said in a low voice, "Are you Fu Wang?" Fu Wang was startled and stammered, "Yes, yes. Tea house at the corner of the street. See you at the old place." After saying this, the other party lifted his foot and turned to leave. Fu Wang stared blankly at the dirty copper coin. He bent over and picked it up. He wiped the stain on it and put it in his sleeve. His heart was beating fast. When his companion who went to the toilet returned, Fu Wang used his diarrhea as an excuse to slip away. He went to the tea house where he used to meet with the mysterious person. It was still the innermost tea house. The man from before had already taken a seat. Fu Wang walked in with suspicion in his heart. Although this person's clothes were very similar to the previous person, they were not the same person. Compared to the previous mysterious person, this person in front of him was obviously much taller. "Young master is the person who asked you to find Mother Qin last time can't come now. The person who will make the deal with you in the future is me," Fei Nu said in a hoarse voice. Xiao Ju asked him to come to the Su family in order to make a deal with this servant called Fu Wang. At the same time, Yin would be safely removed from this matter to avoid leaving any evidence behind. Fu Wang was startled and carefully asked, "May I ask, the previous young master, dead?" The other party's voice was extremely cold. "So, don't ask what you shouldn't ask, and don't look at what you shouldn't look at." These cold words startled Fu Wang. Although he was greedy for money, he also cherished his life. When he heard that the previous mysterious person had died, he couldn't help but have a myriad of thoughts. After all, even now, he didn't know who that person was or why he was asked to find out Mother Qin's whereabouts. Then, "Young master, why are you looking for me?" Fu Wang asked tentatively. "I want you to search the Su family for all the old belongings of the deceased young Mistress Su, as well as the whereabouts of all the people related to young Mistress Su." The man said concisely. Previously, he was looking for people and things related to concubine Mother He. Now, he was looking for young Mistress Su. "Why? Before Fu Wang could speak, he saw the man in front of him take out a box from beside him and put it on the table. He opened the box, revealing dozens of silver ingots neatly stacked inside. Fu Wang's eyes widened. This person was much more generous than the previous young mistress. The previous young mistress gave the silver ingots one by one. When did she become so generous? For a moment, Fu Wang threw his previous timidity to the back of his mind. His heart and eyes were filled with the silver ingots. How is it? Fei Nu asked. Well said, well said. Fu Wang hugged the box in front of him. He was so happy that the corners of his mouth bloomed. Even if this little one has to climb a mountain of swords or dive into a sea of fire, this little one will still do this for young master. This matter is not simple. Fei Nu deliberately lowered his voice. Your family's young master is bound to keep an eye on your movements. It's fine. There are also places where the Fu is lax. It's just that young mistress has passed away for a long time. Most of her old belongings were buried with her body. I don't know if there are any left. Fu Wang was probably dazzled by the silver ingots in front of him. He racked his brain for a while before saying, however, young master was deeply in love with young mistress. The courtyard where young mistress used to live still maintains its original appearance. Perhaps one or two old items can be found. It's just that there are people watching the courtyard, so it's not easy to enter. However, he smiled fawningly. This little one should be able to think of a way to enter. This person was really greedy. Or perhaps he had already pulled out the greed in his bones. Now that it was out of control, it saved Fei Nu a lot of effort. Fei Nu looked at Fu Wang, seemingly satisfied. He said, very good. These silver ingots are only a deposit. If you can complete the task I've entrusted to you, in the future, our young master will definitely not treat you unfairly. May I ask? Fu Wang gathered his courage and asked, young master is. This time, the person opposite him was not as mysterious as the previous mysterious person. He only arrogantly raised his head and said, the current emperor personally conferred the title of General Fei Hong. He Rufei Gongzi. General he? Fu Wang asked in surprise. Why would General? He did not finish his words. Thinking of this person's words, don't ask what you shouldn't ask. He smiled fawningly and said, I know. This little one will definitely do a good job for General he. After the task was completed, Fu Wang returned to the Su residence. He did not want to be out for too long and arouse suspicion. Fei Nu sat in the tea room. He drank the tea in front of him in one gulp and also stood up to leave. In the Crown Prince's residence, there was music and dancing today. The Crown Prince was in an extremely good mood. He half leaned on the soft couch and watched the dancing maids. Su Jingfu sat beside him. Prime Minister, why do you have time to visit me today? The Guangyin smiled and said, Xylin and Pingting's marriage is approaching. The Su residence should be very busy. Su Jingfu smiled and replied, the affairs of the residence are handled by my wife. Today, I came to see your highness about the matter of the Wu Tuo envoy. The Guangyin stopped drinking and looked at Su Jingfu. Oh, what is Prime Minister's opinion? In less than half a month, the Wu Tuo envoy will arrive in the capital. Su Jingfu said, right now, there are more people in favor of peace than war. It will not be difficult to convince His Majesty. However, I hope that your highness will reconsider the matter of opening the market. What does Prime Minister Su mean? The Guangyin asked indifferently. It was your idea to cooperate with the Yudo. Since it was the Yudo who suggested opening the market, why did Prime Minister Su change your mind at the last minute? Su Jingfu was not angered by the Crown Prince's attitude. He only smiled and said, it's not that I changed my mind. It's just that now that Xiao Huijin has won the war, the initiative is now in Wei's hands. There's no need to feign civility with the Yudo. Once the market is opened, it will be difficult to negotiate with the Yudo. It's better to raise the price now. Otherwise, won't the Yudo have the final say? A hint of displeasure appeared on the Crown Prince's face. However, this expression was quickly concealed. Prime Minister Su's words are reasonable. However, Prime Minister Su needs to be clear about one thing. You, this prince, and the Yudo have private dealings. Once this matter spreads, how can there be a future? The Yudo has something on us. However, now that he saw Ing Xiang smiling sweetly and leaning against the Crown Prince, Su Jingfu felt a sense of unease. The Crown Prince's residence never lacked beauties, nor did it lack smart people. The battles in the harem were not as easy as the politics in the imperial court. When Su Pingting sent Ing Xiang into the Crown Prince's residence, she did not have any intention of letting her live. However, so many days had passed, and Ing Xiang was living well. She had even received the Crown Prince's love. This was not something that could be achieved with just beauty. The innocent beauty's eyes were clear, as if she did not understand the filthy things of the world. Among all the beauties, she was like a dewdrop in the morning, with a fragile purity. Even the Guangyin, who did not cherish beauties, looked at her with pity. Su Jingfu sat for a while, then got up and left. After he left, the Guangyin ordered the servants to take away Su Jingfu's bowl, chopsticks, and cups. An old man. He is just a prime minister, but he thinks he is some big shot. He even wants to meddle in my affairs. The Crown Prince's Guangyin's eyes were filled with viciousness after Su Jingfu left. I think his hands are reaching too far. Ing Xiang leaned against the Guangyin, her small hand gently stroking his chest to help him breathe. She comforted him softly. Your Highness does not need to be too angry. This world will belong to your Highness in the future. Your Highness will do whatever you say. Why do you need to listen to others? These words greatly pleased the Guangyin. The Guangyin kissed her on the cheek. You little girl, you know how to talk. Be careful. Prime Minister Su might find trouble with you if he hears this. Even if Prime Minister wants to find trouble with this servant is your Highness's servant. Your Highness will definitely protect this servant, right? Ing Xiang said sweetly. Even if I am your Highness's servant, it is still better than most people in the world. Also, let me tell your Highness a secret. She leaned closer to the Guangyin, looking very charming. This servant was not like the other beauties, who either flattered him or were afraid of him. The Guangyin liked it very much, so he asked, what secret? This servant also does not like Prime Minister Su, Ing Xiang said with a bitter face. Prime Minister Su has too many rules and always has his own ideas. I am really afraid that one day, Prime Minister Su will even interfere in your Highness's affairs. If your Highness sends this servant away, that would be terrible. Chapter 221. In the Shuo capital, there was an anecdote that someone set fire to the library of the Xianchang dojo. The arsonist was found and died in the sea of fire. An entire shelf of books was burned. Coincidentally, it was the notes that General Feihong He Rufei had left behind when he was studying in the academy. The Xianchang dojo had been famous for so many years and had produced two famous generals. Of the two famous generals, if General Feng Yun was said to be a genius in the hearts of young people, then General Feihong He Rufei was often used as a role model by teachers to educate students. You have to know that when General He was in the Xianchang dojo, he was not good at his studies and was often last place. Even so, hard work can make up for it. Today, he is still not a great general of the Dawei. Therefore, not everyone in the world is a genius. But if you work hard, you can achieve great things. General, he was an example of hard work can make up for it. Just relying on the words of his classmates and teachers was not enough. The notes in the library were evidence. Now that this evidence was mysteriously burned, many teachers in the Shuo capital secretly cursed the arsonist for being immoral. But at the same time, the students in the academy all cheered. After all, being forced to make up for it with hard work was not an easy thing to do. In the He residence, He Rufei sat in the study and looked at the subordinate that reported the news. You're saying that the death soldiers that were sent to set the fire did not even leave behind a corpse? He asked. That's right. Rufei. He Yuanqing narrowed his eyes. Do you feel that something is wrong? They just burned a shelf of books and died in the fire. Not even a corpse can be found. I feel that something is wrong. The subordinate respectfully replied. I asked around the Xianchang dojo. The fire in the library is true. Now, all the students in the academy have returned home. The head of the academy is asking people to repair the burned shelves. It is said that not a single note of General He's was left behind. He Yuanqing thought for a moment. Rufei, if you are worried, do you want to personally go? No. He Rufei flatly refused. Now that we're in troubled times, I have to be even more careful with my words and actions. The Xianchang dojo has just caught fire. If I go there now, it's hard to avoid being caught. We still haven't settled the matter from last time, so we definitely can't let our guard down. Thinking about what happened last time, Rufei was extremely frustrated. He had already made up his mind to take Yan's life, or at least he wanted to test him, but he didn't expect that woman to be so skillful. Fortunately, he found all the men of sacrifice and didn't reveal the secret. In the end, he pushed all the evidence to the Fan family, but the Yamen refused to close the case. Rufei sent someone to investigate and found out that it was Xiao Ju who had interfered. Xiao Huijin valued his fiancée very much. Now it seemed that he wanted to stand up for her. Rufei didn't care about the daughter of a guard at the city gate, but he had heard of Xiao Ju's methods. Even Su Jingfu couldn't get any benefits from this person, so of course he was afraid. Forget it, since the notes have been burned, let's not talk about the rest. Rufei changed the topic. Soon, the envoy from the Wu Tuol will enter the capital. At this time, it's better not to cause trouble. Yuanshang paused and looked at Rufei. Once the Wu Tuol enters the capital, His Majesty will definitely discuss the war and peace. If not, our He family, Father, our He family will naturally make peace. Rufei sneered. Not to mention the Battle of Huayuan, we are already tied to Prime Minister Su. Even now, for the sake of the He family, we have to stand together. Xiao Huijin already has a grudge with us. Helping Prime Minister Su is helping ourselves. Of course I know, but Yuanxing's eyes flashed. My son, in today's court, the fourth prince's support is quite high. You see, no matter how high the fourth prince's support is, it can't be higher than Prime Minister Su. Rufei frowned. Moreover, the Dou values etiquette the most. The crown prince is the legitimate heir, and the fourth prince doesn't have the support of his mother's family. Father, at this time, our He family can't take a neutral position. We must stand on the crown prince's side without reservation. Yuanshang sighed. I'm just worried. Rufei's eyes flashed with a trace of mockery. He looked at Yuanshang. Father, if you want to obtain great wealth, you have to take risks. When my younger sister reached the rank of Grand General, there was no turning back. Yuanshang stilled, as if the secret in his heart was suddenly exposed. A trace of embarrassment floated on his face. After a pause, he stood up and said, Since you've already made up your mind, then we'll do as you say. I still have matters to attend to, so I'll leave first. He left as if he was escaping. Rufei looked at Yuanxing's hurried figure and smiled. He leaned back, his face gradually darkening. He didn't know when it started, but the entire He family had started to act according to his wishes. Even Yuanshang and Yuanliang had to be careful when they spoke to him. Rufei had heard more than once from the servants in the residence that the eldest young master's temperament had become more and more eccentric in recent years. He was especially different from the past. After Rufei heard this, she ordered for the servant who spoke to be executed immediately. After a few times, no one dared to gossip behind his back. Those who achieved great things didn't care about trifles. Of the two brothers of the He family, Yuanliang was cowardly, sly, and cunning. Yuanshang was vicious and merciless, but unfortunately, he had many misgivings and didn't dare to take a risk. Now, there was only a woman with the same name and surname, and she had become enemies with Xiao Huijin. When he did things, his hands were tied, and he was an eyesore. How could they know that if they wanted to achieve great things, their hands would be stained with blood? For example, in the Battle of Huayuan, in order to prevent future troubles, he took the initiative to get in touch with Su Jingfu. Su Jingfu and Yudo also had secret dealings. It was just a casual matter, but He Yan's trusted subordinates were all buried in that battle that didn't require him to pay such a high price. After that, there were very few people who understood General Fei Hong. As a general, he had a clear conscience. Rufei didn't feel the slightest bit of guilt for his own actions. He also didn't feel the slightest bit of sympathy for his cousin, who died early. Before He Yan became General Fei Hong, she had already lived under his name for many years. If it weren't for his identity as eldest young master, a woman living in this world should have followed the rules and regulations and followed the husband after marriage. How would there be anything that came after? It could be said that all the military merits that Yin had earned were originally obtained by relying on his name. Now, everything was just returning to its rightful owner. Not to mention that Marquis Wu and was obviously a substitute pretending to be a ghost. Even if the real He Yin came to take his life, he wouldn't be the least bit afraid, because this should have been his in the first place. On this day, He Yin left early in the morning and only returned home when it was close to evening. Lady Fan in prison was still crazy, and he couldn't get any useful information out of her. Mother Qin was hidden in the Xiao family, but what she knew was very limited. Su Zhiheng didn't truly trust He Wanru, and Mother Qin deliberately avoided the murder case at the time. Therefore, other than a witness, there wasn't much other evidence for the time being. He Yin could only make a trip himself. Although she was now Marquis Wu and she hadn't established her own network in the imperial court. Her colleagues saw that she was a woman, and although they flattered her on the surface, they actually despised her in their hearts. Other than classmates like Lin Shuanghe and Yin He, there were very few officials in the imperial court who could be on good terms with her. Fortunately, although the title of Marquis Wu wasn't very useful, the title of Xiao Ju's fiancé was more convenient than He Yin had imagined. As long as she brought up Xiao Ju, most of her colleagues were still willing to give her face. He Yin used the title of Xiao Ju to inquire about matters within the Fuyue army. As she probed like this, she really did find some clues. Ever since He Rufei received the title of Fei Hong, Dawei was peaceful and there were very few wars. He had always stayed in Shuajing and never left the city. The Battle of Huayuan was the first time He Rufei went to the battlefield after a few years. In that battle, He Rufei led the Fuyue army to a Pyrrhic victory, and all of his trusted subordinates died in battle. None of the deputy general subordinates, who were even slightly close to He Rufei, survived. Most of the soldiers who participated in that battle were ordinary soldiers who didn't have access to the secrets of the war. However, even if this was the case, there were still some secret rumors that spread. The general that day was very different from before. He seemed to have an argument with the military advisor, but the military advisor had already died in the Battle of Huayuan. However, when the Yudo came that day, we had the advantage. However, the general didn't move, and in the end, gave the Yudo an opportunity. However, maybe we were thinking too much. The general has been through hundreds of battles, and naturally isn't someone that we can figure out. The soldier added, because General Fei Hong's name was too famous, no one doubted his tactics, and no one doubted his loyalty. However, He Yin knew that He Rufei was purposely sending those people to their deaths. Before this, He Rufei had never led an army. In the Battle of Huayuan, he was able to let his most valued subordinates be completely wiped out, and he was able to escape unscathed. There is no such logic in the world, unless he had been secretly colluding with the Yudo. Thinking about this, He Yin realized that when she pretended to be He Rufei in the Rundu and attacked the Yudo's camp, General Huye's reaction was also very thought-provoking. If He Rufei really wanted to protect his identity from being exposed and did not hesitate to ask a tiger for its skin and betray the country's ruler, this crime was unforgivable. As she thought about this, she unknowingly walked to the door. Just as she entered the door, Qing Mei saw her and hurried over, saying, "Miss, you're finally back." "What's wrong?" He Yin asked curiously. Ever since her identity was exposed, He Yin had let Xiao Ju take Qi Wu away during the day and come back at night. A good bodyguard couldn't just stay by her side and not do anything. Therefore, after Qi Wu left, Qing Mei went back to her old days. It was rare to see her so flustered. Someone came to the house, Qing Mei said in a small voice. They said they were looking for Miss. Just as she finished speaking, He Yin heard a familiar voice. "Big brother." She turned around and saw a yellow-clothed youth with red lips and white teeth running over from the hall. He walked 2 circles around her with a face full of surprise. "Big brother, I didn't think you were really a woman." Qing Mei reminded him kindly, "Little Gongzi, our family's Miss is a woman." He didn't expect Chung Li Su to come to his house. It seemed to have been a long time since he last saw him. This youth had grown a bit taller, but his eyebrows were still as arrogant as before. "Why are you here?" Ian asked. "Today, I snuck out when no one was paying attention," Chung Li Su said with a bitter face. "After I returned to the capital from the Liangzhou Guard, I was forced to go to school. I had no freedom at all. When I heard that Big Brother had returned to the capital, I wanted to come and see, but the school was very strict and I couldn't leave. When I returned, I heard that you were a woman and that you had become my uncle's fiancée. Big Brother, what's going on? How did you become a woman?" It had been so long, but he didn't expect someone to still be concerned about this matter. Ian was helpless and could only say, "I was a woman to begin with. At the time, I was forced by the situation and had no choice but to disguise myself as a man and enter the military. When I returned to the capital, my identity was naturally revealed. I'm sorry for the misunderstanding." As soon as he said this, he heard another voice say, "So, you admit that you lied?" Ian was startled and saw Song Taodao walk out from the back. The little girl was even more lively and delicate than when she was in the Liangzhou Guard. The Song family probably doted on this daughter very much. The material of her clothes looked very expensive, making her seem like a little fairy who didn't eat the food of mortals. However, unlike her delicate face, her expression was like that of an infatuated girl who had been abandoned by a heartless man. "Tao Tao." Ian looked at Chung Li Su. "You came together?" Chung Li Su rolled his eyes. "Who wants to come with her?" "Well, I can't find Big Brother. I just happened to run into this shrew at the door." Song Taodao walked in front of Yin with a complicated expression. She sized up Yin from head to toe before saying resentfully, "You really are a woman." Yin, it was impossible for Yin not to have noticed the little girl's thoughts from beginning to end. After all, this child was pure and sincere. Her thoughts were written all over her face. Even an idiot could see her undisguised admiration and affection. However, when they were in the Liangzhou Guard, Yin couldn't reveal his identity. He also couldn't remind this child that she was a woman and couldn't marry Song Taodao. Now that she had come knocking on his door, Yin inexplicably felt a bit guilty. He felt like a stinky man who had deceived a young girl's pure feelings. She carefully considered her words. She still hadn't figured out how to say it without hurting Song Taodao's fragile young girl heart. Song Taodao also felt wronged. It had been a long time since she found out that Yin was a woman. However, Song Taodao couldn't convince herself no matter what. She had to see Yin in person to believe it. Today, she had finally managed to convince her parents to come out with her retainer. She hadn't expected to run into Chung Li Su, this jinx. That wasn't all. Now that she saw the slender and elegant woman in front of her with a heroic and elegant appearance, Song Taodao finally had to accept a heavy reality. Yin was indeed a woman. She was even a good-looking woman. How could she have thought that this woman was a man at the time? She had even wanted to break off her engagement with Chung Li Su and marry him. "It's all your fault." Song Taodao was used to being pampered and was flustered. She vented all her anger on Yin. "Why did you come to the Liangzhou Guard to deceive people for no reason?" Sorry. Yin carefully apologized to the child. "I didn't do it on purpose." "Why didn't you do it on purpose?" The more Song Taodao thought about it, the angrier and more wronged she felt. She stared at Yin aggressively. "You just wanted to show off your own heroic appearance so that you could outshine everyone else. Everyone else would look at you, and you would be the only one in the limelight." Yin couldn't say anything. It's all your fault." "Enough." Another voice interrupted. Yin turned around to look. Yinsheng walked in with a cloth bag on his back. He blocked Yan's way and looked at Song Taodao with a cold face. "Who are you? Who allowed you to be so impudent to my sister in my house?" Yin felt a headache coming on. Right now, there was only her, Qing Mei, and the naughty child in the room. The situation was very awkward. "Yinsheng, this is Miss Song, and this is young Master Chung. They're all friends I made in the Liangzhou Guard." She then said to Song Taodao and the others, "This is my younger brother, Yinsheng." "Friends?" Yinsheng glanced at Song Taodao and said unhappily, "How can friends be so aggressive?" Yin, I already told you not to be friends with just anyone. Song Tao Dao was stunned for a moment. He Yunxing's appearance was too sudden, and she didn't react for a moment. At this moment, after hearing He Yan's words, she focused her attention on He Yunxing again. In fact, He Yunxing was a bit similar to He Yan, but he wasn't as warm and gentle as He Yan. He always had a smile on his face when he met people. He was taller than He Yan by a head. The handsome and cold young man standing there was quite eye-catching. A man who looked similar to He Yan, but his temperament was completely different. This feeling was very strange. Song Tao Tao stared at him blankly and forgot to talk back. He Yan fiercely pulled He Yunxing's arm and whispered in his ear, "She's a girl. Can you not be so fierce?" "I don't care if she's a girl or a man." He Yunxing frowned. "Talking to you like that. Do you think I'm dead?" This damn child is getting more and more rebellious, He Yan thought. He guessed that Song Tao Dao would cry after being yelled at like this. Before he could think of how to comfort the crying girl, Chung Lisu had already surrounded He Yunxing again in surprise. She grabbed his hand and said, "You're my big brother's younger brother, so you're my brother too? My name is Chung Lisu. Brother He, did you just get out of school?" He Yunxing had never seen such a friendly person. He immediately took a step back and shook off Chung Lisu's hand. He frowned and said, "Who's your big brother?" "It's your sister." Chung Lisu answered matter-of-factly. As soon as the words came out of her mouth, she seemed to feel that it was wrong and quickly changed her words. "It seems that I shouldn't call her big brother now. How about calling her sister?" No, my big brother is my uncle's fiancée. In that case, I should call her aunt." He looked up at He Yan and called out with perfect articulation, "Aunt." "He Yan, how did she get such a big nephew out of nowhere?" That was not all. Chung Lisu looked at He Yunxing and said, "You're my aunt's brother, so I should call you Uncle? Uncle He." The He siblings were shocked by Chung Lisu's natural way of calling him a relative. Even Song Tao Dao could not stand it and scolded her. "Why are you calling him that? Be careful, or Military Governor Xiao will come after you if he hears you." "I'm not calling him that. Anyway, I'm going to be your aunt sooner or later." Chung Lisu did not feel that there was anything wrong with having a lower seniority. She said happily, "In the future, I'll have 2 more relatives. Aunt, uncle, I haven't eaten yet. Do you want to have dinner together?" He Yunxing could not take it anymore. He said to He Yan, "What kind of people have you befriended?" He turned around and left in a huff. He Yan, she couldn't be blamed. Chung Lisu had never played by the rules. She smiled and looked at Song Tao Tao. "Tao Tao, have you eaten? Do you want to eat together?" She thought that the little girl was here to denounce her today, and this meeting was not very pleasant. Second Miss Song, who was pampered and spoiled, might not be used to eating in this rough house. Unexpectedly, Song Tao Tao paused and nodded as if nothing had happened. Okay, He Yan was really frightened. What was going on today? Both of them did not play by the rules. However, since they had already stayed, they still had to pay for the meal. However, the He family's food was simple. He was afraid that it would not suit the young master's and young ladies' tastes. He Yan ordered some money and had Qing Mei go out and buy some side dishes. When Sui came back, he was quite surprised by the people in the house. When he heard that they were He Yan's friends from the Liang Province Guard, he immediately smiled and greeted them, thinking that they were familiar juniors. Everyone ate at the same table. Other than Song Tao Dao, who was silent, and He Yunxing, who had a sour face, they got along quite well. He Sui always wanted to know how He Yan was doing in the Liang Province Guard. However, it was not good to ask Xiao Ju all the time. Now that there was a ready-made candidate, of course, he would not let go of such a good opportunity. Chung Lisu was also a chatterbox. As long as He Sui asked, he would tell him everything he knew. He Yan suspected that he could even remember how many biscuits he ate in the Liang Province Guard. However, thanks to this group of children, his gloomy mood from inquiring about the Fuyua army during the day was greatly alleviated. After the meal, He Yan saw them out the door. Song Tao Tao and Chung Lisu both brought their own carriages and servants. Chung Lisu had only been with He Sui for a short period of time, but she had already become good friends with him despite the difference in age. They had even agreed on a date for their next meal. He finally managed to send them away with great difficulty before he left the room. Outside the door, Song Taodao got into her family's carriage. The maidservant next to her carefully asked, "Young miss, you've seen Missy today. In the future, you won't make a fuss about breaking off the engagement with young Master Chung, right?" Her sweetheart was a woman, so naturally it was impossible. In the future, what reason would Song Taodao have to break off the engagement? Song Taodao said unconcernedly, "I admire military governor Xiao very much. It is my good fortune to be able to become friends with him. However, I have never thought of becoming his niece-in-law." The maidservant was stunned. She did not understand what Song Taodao meant. Song Taodao lowered her head. Thinking of the face of the green-clothed youth she had just seen, she secretly pursed her lips. She originally wanted to be Xiao Ju's sister-in-law. Unfortunately, Xiao Jing was already married. However, now that she thought about it, being Xiao Ju's sister-in-law was not a bad idea. Chapter 222. At night at the Su residence, someone got out of bed and lit an oil lamp. The mattress next to her was empty. Su Zhiheng was sleeping in the study again tonight. Yixing walked to the table, picked up an outer robe, and put it on. She looked at the flickering wick of the oil lamp with a complicated expression. She didn't know when it started, but there seemed to be an invisible barrier between her and Su Zhiheng. To be more precise, after the last palace banquet, Su Zhiheng became particularly strange. Later, she met her eldest sister, Marquis Wuan Hian, at Yuhua Temple. Not long after she returned to the residence, He Rufei came to visit her. Rather than calling it a visit, it was better to call it a probe. There were some things that once there were signs of suspicion, it couldn't be dispelled. Yixing could feel that the Su family was hiding a big secret. Perhaps it was related to her eldest sister who had passed away, or perhaps it was also related to the He family. She stood in front of the window. The winter in the capital was extremely cold. On such a cold night, the servants had all returned to their rooms to sleep. Yixing looked at the bare branches outside the window. After thinking for a long time, she finally put on a cloak, picked up an oil lamp, and left the room. Her movements were very light, and she walked very carefully. She didn't disturb anyone else. The Su family's night watch was outside the main courtyard and wouldn't come in. The light of the oil lamp was very dim. It could only barely illuminate the path under her feet. Yixing felt her way in the dark until she arrived in front of an abandoned courtyard. This abandoned courtyard was the courtyard where her eldest sister, Hian, had once lived. Even after Hian's death, Su Zhiheng still maintained the courtyard's original appearance. The last time Yixing was here, she saw Su Zhiheng frantically rummaging through the drawers. She hadn't been able to see what Su Zhiheng was looking for before she was discovered. This time, there was no one around, so she wanted to take a look. Although no one lived in this courtyard, the snow in the courtyard had been swept clean. She walked to Hian's room. The room wasn't locked. With a gentle push, the door opened. Yixing walked in. There was a musty smell in the room. It was cold and damp. Yixing was slightly surprised. Didn't they say that Su Zhiheng often missed his elder sister? But if he really missed his elder sister, why didn't he clean the room? Instead, it was covered in dust. It was as if no one had set foot here for a long time, and he couldn't wait to avoid it. Yixing looked around with the lamp in his hand. This was a woman's boudoir. In front of it was a shelf with some inexpensive vases and ornaments. In the middle was a small table covered with a thick layer of dust. The teacups and teapot were even covered with cobwebs. Further inside was a large wooden bed. In comparison, this bed seemed to be cleaner as it was covered with a thin blanket. This room looked cold and empty. It was not as warm and exquisite as a girl's boudoir. As soon as he entered, he felt a chill in his face. Although Hian had married not long after he came back to live in the He family, the boudoir before marriage was still meticulously decorated. If this was the house where Hian used to live in the Su family, and this house still retained the original appearance of Hian when she was alive, then Yixing thought that her elder sister, who died early, most likely didn't live, as well as the rumor said in the He family. If it was because he was blind, then it wasn't appropriate to put too many things in a room to avoid tripping over the master, but the furnishings and utensils here were too shabby and perfunctory. There was also nothing to relieve boredom. A blind man living alone in such a large room. If it was him, he would have been driven crazy long ago. He Xining walked to the front of the table. Last time, she saw Su Zhiheng rummaging through the boxes and cabinets. She didn't know what he was looking for. She pulled out a wooden drawer, and as expected, it was empty. Thinking about it, if there really was something, it would have been taken away by Su Zhiheng long ago. She didn't realize that she had unknowingly placed Su Zhiheng in an opposing position. Towards this gentle and considerate husband, she no longer relied on and trusted him like she did in the past. Instead, it was replaced by vigilance and suspicion. Even the warmth of the past had become hypocrisy in Yixining's eyes. Yixining walked around the room and checked all the wooden drawers and shelves. She didn't find anything useful. She had been out for too long, and it was too cold outside. The wind directly drilled into her knees. She rubbed her numb legs, looked at the relatively clean bed, and sat on the edge of the bed. In the room, only the oil lamp in her hand emitted a faint light. Sitting here, she inexplicably felt a bit strange. When she calmed down, Yixining was a little regretful. Why did she come here all of a sudden? There was no one here. It was said that the souls of the dead would linger in the place where they lived. If his elder sister was here, although they were blood relatives, they weren't very close before. Moreover, if they really saw a ghost at night, it could scare people to death. Yixining couldn't help but grip the bedpost tightly. This was a habit she had developed since childhood. When she was young, she was timid and always slept with her mother. When she grew older, she couldn't sleep with her mother anymore. Yixining had her own courtyard. When she lived alone, she was still very afraid. When she was most afraid, she would lean against the inside of the bed at night, tightly holding the bedpost against the wall and softly praying for Bodhisattva's protection. It was the same today. However, when her fingers slid down the bedpost, she suddenly felt that something was wrong. Yixining was startled. She stretched out her hand to touch the spot just now and felt that something was wrong. She climbed up to the head of the bed and raised the oil lamp to look inside. Suddenly, she found that on the bedpost against the wall, there was a slightly protruding piece of wood. The girl was careful. She used her fingers to pull it out, and that piece of wood fell off. From inside, a roll of yellow paper was revealed. It seemed to have something written on it. Her heart was beating fast. She only knew that if this thing was hidden here, it must be very important. Perhaps this was what Su Zhiheng was looking for. She couldn't tell when someone would come here. Yixining exerted her strength and pulled out something that looked like a book from the bedpost that had been deliberately hollowed out. She hurriedly hid the book in her bosom and hurriedly fastened the wood of the bedpost. Only then did she carefully leave while holding the oil lamp. The surroundings were strangely quiet. Yixining secretly returned to her room. Only then did she dare to take out the book from her clothes. She used the weak light of the oil lamp to take a look. Sure enough, it was a book. She looked at a few pages and was stunned. This was a military book. All kinds of military strategies were recorded in it. On the side, there were notes and opinions written by the reader. Looking at the handwriting, it definitely wasn't Su Zhiheng's. No one in the Su family practiced martial arts. Moreover, it was hidden in such a secretive way. It was also in He-Yan's room. No matter how she looked at it, this military book was left behind by her elder sister, who died early. But how could He-Yan read a military book? If it was her cousin Hirufei, it would be more likely. However, Hirufei's military book didn't appear in the Su family. Why would they hide it so carefully? Yixining held the military book in her hands. She couldn't understand what was going on. At this time, someone's voice suddenly sounded from outside. Yixining was startled. She quickly blew out the oil lamp and hid the book in the lowest box under the table. She quickly walked to the bed and lay down. Just as she lay down, a maidservant knocked on the door. "Eldest young mistress? Eldest young mistress? What's the matter?" Yixining pretended to be sleepy as she answered. There was silence outside for a while. Then, someone said, "A thief entered the courtyard. Eldest young master told us to come and ask eldest young mistress." A thief entered? Yixining was a bit nervous. However, she still pretended to be surprised. She put on her outer clothes and opened the door for the maidservant. She asked in confusion, "How could a thief enter the Fu?" "I don't know." That maidservant saw that his sheening was really safe and sound in the room. She seemed relieved and said, "Eldest young master is currently interrogating the thief. I'll go take a look." His sheening said. She closed the door and followed the maidservant to the main hall. In the main hall, Su Jihung was sitting on a chair in the middle. A group of servants stood around him. A person dressed as a servant was kneeling on the ground. He continuously kowtowed to Su Jihung. "Eldest young master, please spare my life. Eldest young master, please spare my life." This little one really didn't take anything. "I didn't take anything." Su Jihung's face was so dark that it was about to drip water. He stared at him and said, "Stop talking nonsense. Hand over the things you stole from young Mistress Bedpost. Otherwise, you will die here today." When he said this, his eyes were gloomy and fierce. He was completely different from his previous gentle and amiable appearance. His Sheening was startled. When she heard the words bedpost, she became even more nervous. She reluctantly squeezed out a smile and walked to Su Jihung's side. "Husband, what happened?" Seeing His Sheening, Su Jihung's expression relaxed. He pointed at the servant on the ground and said, "This person sneaked into Ahi's courtyard at night and stole Ahi's old things from the bedpost. He is extremely hateful." Fu Wang, the servant on the ground, hurriedly explained, "Eldest young master, it really wasn't this little one. When this little one found the bedpost, it was already empty. This little one really didn't take anything from inside." Fu Wang was also complaining incessantly in his heart. Today, he took advantage of the night when there was no one around. It was a good opportunity to sneak into eldest young mistress's room to find the mysterious person's old things. As a result, he walked around the room and found that there was one place that was different from the others. It was the bedpost in the inner room. He originally thought that there would be some secret hidden inside, but when he opened it, it was empty. He didn't have time to feel regret. He didn't know when the people outside were alerted, but he was caught and brought to Su Jihung. "Eldest young master, it really wasn't this little one who did it. If you don't believe me, you can search this little one's body and the place where this little one lives. This little one is innocent." His Sheening looked at the servant, who kept kowtowing and begging for mercy. He couldn't help but be frightened. It seemed that this servant had become her scapegoat. However, if it was just ordinary property, with Su Jihung's temperament, he wouldn't be so harsh. At worst, he would just beat him with a plank and drive him out of the residence. Why did it seem like he was going to fight to the death? Could it be that Su Jihung knew what was inside the bedpost? But it was just an ordinary military book. His Sheening didn't understand. "I see that your mouth is full of lies and not a single word of truth. Since it's like this, I won't be able to get a reason from you even if you stay here. I'll hand you over to the authorities to be dealt with," Su Jihung said coldly. As soon as these words came out, Fu Wang's face changed color. Since ancient times, most of the servants who were handed over to the authorities by their masters would die. Moreover, their deaths were especially torturous. He was just a little greedy for money, but he didn't want to lose his life. Moreover, he was so wronged. It had to be known that he didn't get anything. Since it was like this, of course protecting his own life was the most important thing. Fu Wang pleaded, "I beg eldest young master not to hand this little one over to the authorities. In fact, this little one was entrusted by someone to steal something. This little one will tell eldest young master everything I know. Can eldest young master spare this little one's life?" Entrusted by someone? Su Jihung looked at him. That's right, that's right." Fu Wang kowtowed loudly. Even if this little one was given 100 guts, this little one still wouldn't dare to steal from the estate. Su Jihung stared at Fu Wang, as if trying to discern whether Fu Wang's words were true or false. After a moment, he said to the surrounding people, "All of you can leave. I have something to ask this thief." His Sheening glanced at the manservant on the ground. "Husband, you also leave." Su Jihung's attitude was very firm. His Sheening didn't say anything and left. After the door closed, she looked in the direction of the room. She didn't know when, but her palms were already soaked with sweat. That military book. What exactly was going on? Inside the room, Su Zhiheng opened his mouth and asked, "Speak. Who told you to steal from the Su estate?" It's General He. You dare to lie to me?" Su Zhiheng was furious. Fu Wang was so frightened that he immediately knelt down. This little one doesn't dare to lie to eldest young master. This little one's acquaintance said that their master was General He. Su Zhiheng's hands clenched into fists, and he suppressed his emotions as he said, "Why did He Rufei ask you to steal things?" This little one also doesn't know. Fu Wang wiped the sweat from his forehead. They gave this little one a sum of money, and this little one was momentarily blinded by greed. I thought that I was only going to steal a few things and inquire about a person. It wasn't anything outrageous, so I agreed. Inquire about a person? Su Zhiheng's eyes narrowed. What exactly did they want you to do? Fu Wang only hoped that he could get out alive. He didn't care about anything else, and simply told him everything he knew. They wanted this little one to find some old things from eldest young mistress's life, as well as people related to eldest young mistress. When this little one entered the estate, eldest young mistress had already passed away. I really couldn't find her, so I just thought that maybe I could steal something. He was also very cunning. He only said that he was caught before he could do anything for the other party, and he didn't mention the matter of Mother Qin at all. Tonight, I snuck into eldest young mistress's room, but before I could find anything, I was discovered. But eldest young master, the things in the bedpost really weren't taken by this little one. When this little one found the bedpost, it was already empty. These words weren't false, but unfortunately, Su Zhiheng was still skeptical of him. I beg eldest young master to spare this little one's life. This little one won't dare to do it again, he pleaded. Eldest young master Su, who had always been soft-hearted and easy to talk to, didn't answer today. Fu Wang gathered his courage and looked up. He saw that under the light of the lantern, the man's face was half bright and half dark. Half of his face looked like an ordinary person, but the other half looked like a malevolent demon. It was so twisted that it made people's hearts turn cold. After an unknown amount of time, just as Fu Wang felt that his little life was about to be lost, the people above spoke. Su Zhiheng said, "Since you said that General He asked you to do something, this eldest young master will spare your life." But his voice deepened. "The next time they ask you to meet, you need to tell them that you didn't find anything. Also, you can't tell anyone that I found you." Was he going to lie to He Rufei's people? Fu Wang's suspicions flashed through his mind. He quickly lowered his head and said with tears of gratitude, "Many thanks, eldest young master. This little one will definitely do a good job for eldest young master." Su Zhiheng looked at the servant kneeling and kowtowing at his feet and didn't say anything. He Rufei actually secretly sent people to investigate He Yan's old belongings. What was he trying to do? Was he trying to use this information to threaten him? Yes, a few days ago, there was a big fire in the Xianchong restaurant. Coincidentally or not, it just happened to burn He Rufei's childhood notebook. As soon as the news reached the Su family, Su Zhiheng guessed that He Rufei was behind it. It seemed that He Rufei wasn't as calm about the appearance of his cousin who had the same name as him. The He family had too many secrets that could be used against them. Madam He Rufei, He Yuansheng, and He Yuanliang. In comparison, the Su family had too few secrets that could be used against them. Even He Yan's death wasn't done by him. If the truth was revealed, Su Zhiheng could completely escape unscathed. Perhaps it was because of this that He Rufei felt uneasy. That was why he tried every possible means to get hold of He Yan's secret in the Su family. This way, as long as he could prove that he also knew about He Yan and He Rufei swapping identities, the Su family wouldn't be able to escape when the truth came to light one day. He Rufei was afraid. That was why he wanted to drag the Su family down with him at this time. Su Zhiheng's face darkened. Even though he knew about this matter from the beginning, he also understood that the He family and Su family were in the same boat. However, when this matter really happened right under his nose, he still felt displeased. In the past, when he was safe and sound, he naturally hoped that they could live well and enjoy glory together. However, once something happened, He Rufei's actions were truly unethical. Since He Rufei was going overboard, then he didn't need to care about their feelings. Speaking of which, just like how Fu Wang went around Yan's room but didn't find anything, if something really happened, as long as there was no evidence, Su Zhiheng could still protect himself. At night, Yan tossed and turned on the bed, unable to sleep. She knew that He Rufei wasn't General Fei Hong and that his story was full of loopholes. However, everyone had to pay attention to evidence. It was impossible for the truth to come out with just one sentence from her. Furthermore, the truth sounded so inconceivable. For the time being, there were no living witnesses in the Fuyue army. Just Mother Qin alone wasn't enough. If they wanted to get hold of He Rufei's weakness, they had to start with the battle at Huayuan. During the battle at Huayuan, He Rufei and Yudo must have had an unspeakable relationship. He Rufei was very cautious. If they wanted to find evidence that He Rufei had colluded with the enemy and committed treason, perhaps they had to go to the He residence. The He residence, Yan sat up from the bed and leaned against the head of the bed. She looked at the curtains, and her thoughts gradually drifted away. In reality, she wasn't afraid to step into the He residence again. She had enough of being used and treated coldly by that He family. When she returned to the He residence, she wouldn't have any old feelings for them. However, when she thought about meeting Madame He again, she didn't know how to face her. Chapter 223. For the next few days, it was snowing heavily every day in Shuo City, and the streets were much more deserted. In the Su Fu, He Xining stood in front of the study and knocked on the door. The person inside said, "Come in." He Xining walked in. The kitchen made some red bean sweet soup. "It's too cold outside." He Xining smiled as she took the small bowl out of the basket and placed it in front of Su Zhiheng's table. "Husband, drink some to warm up your body. Don't freeze." Su Zhiheng's gaze fell on the small white porcelain bowl on the table. In the porcelain bowl, the red bean sweet soup emitted a sweet and greasy aroma. The brown soup made him suddenly think of the tonic that the He family had sent a long time ago. It had the same color and the same sweet aroma. That soup was extremely effective. After Yan drank it, he had a high fever for 3 days and could no longer see. Su Zhiheng subconsciously raised his head. He Xining was looking at him tenderly. Her appearance was somewhat similar to Yan's. Su Zhiheng's heart suddenly jumped, and he subconsciously stood up. His sleeve accidentally brushed against the soup bowl on the table. The sweet soup spilled all over the floor and stained his clothes. "Husband, are you all right?" He Xining jumped in fright. She quickly took out a handkerchief to wipe the soup off Su Zhiheng's body and called a servant to clean it up. "I'm fine." Seeing that the sweet soup had spilled, Su Zhiheng was relieved. He took the handkerchief and wiped the water off his body. "This bowl spilled. I'll have someone send another bowl over." He Xining hurriedly said, "No need." Su Zhiheng held her hand and smiled as he pulled her to sit next to him. "I'm not hungry." The woman's hand was warm and soft. It slightly dispelled the uneasiness that had been plaguing him for the past few days. He Xining sat down next to him. After thinking for a bit, she said to Su Zhiheng, "I heard from Lure that my mother's health wasn't good. She has been bedridden. I want to go back and see my mother. Husband, do you have some free time these few days? Why don't you come with me to He Clan?" He Xining felt uneasy when he kept the book in her room. If one day Su Zhiheng ordered people to search the entire mansion on a whim, he would be easily discovered. Moreover, this military book came out of nowhere. She herself didn't understand what was going on. It would be better to go back to the He family and ask second Madame He about it. Her mother knew more about her eldest sister than she did. "You want to go back to the He family?" Su Zhiheng paused and asked He Xining. He looked at He Xining with a scrutinizing gaze. He Xining's heart skipped a beat. She grabbed his arm and said, "I'll go back and take a look. I'll be back tomorrow." "Husband, can you go back with me? My mother hasn't seen you in a long time." He Xining hadn't suffered much since she was young. When he married her, Su Zhiheng knew that she was a bit arrogant and willful when she was in He Clan. However, after she entered the Su residence, she had always been well-behaved. This was different from He Yan's temperament. Although he had never caused trouble and knew his place, it was impossible for him to act spoiled like he's Shining. Su Jiheng said, "I'm very busy these few days. I'm afraid I don't have time to accompany you back to the residence. How about this? I'll ask someone to send you back first. After a few days, when I have free time, I'll accompany you." He Shining timely revealed a wronged expression and said, "Okay." Su Jiheng smiled and held her hand. His thoughts had already drifted to other places. He naturally couldn't go to Clan right now. Not to mention He Yuansheng and his brother, who knew what He Rufei was planning right now. He had arranged spies in his residence to try and find something that could be used against him, and He Shining as well. Su Jiheng thought that although He Shining was his wife, her surname was He. Who knew if He Rufei had communicated with her? This was also good, since He Rufei was able to arrange spies in his residence, who knew if he wouldn't beat him at his own game. This time, he would let He Shining go home first to find out. In the middle of the night, it began to snow again. It was freezing cold. Ian groped his way out of bed in the dark. The room was pitch black, and she didn't even light an oil lamp. Fortunately, she had long been used to being blind. Even if she didn't light a lamp, she wouldn't fall down when she walked around the room. After she finished dressing, she took out a short sword from the drawer and went out. The snow was very heavy. In order to make it easier for her to move, she wore very thin clothes. She only wore a thin layer of cotton underneath her night clothes. As soon as she went out, her snot was about to come out from the cold. There was a charcoal fire burning in the fragrant stable, giving off a weak light. The courtyard was quiet inside and outside. He Sui, his son, and Qing Mei were all sleeping soundly. There was also no movement in Qi Wu's room. Ian quietly opened the door and walked out. There was snow everywhere, and the long street was covered in a silvery white. Lanterns hung under the eaves of the houses along the street, bright red. It was very lively. In less than 2 months, it would be the new year. The New Year's atmosphere was already there, although it was still a bit cold. Ian exhaled, and a white fog immediately appeared in front of her. It was strange to say that the Liangzhou Guard's winter was much colder than Shuajing's winter. However, at that time, they trained every day until they were drenched in sweat and forgot about the cold. Now that they were here, they really did stomp their feet in the cold. She had only walked a few steps when she almost reached the end of the street. She saw a carriage parked there. Ian was stunned for a moment. In the middle of the night, there was no one on the empty street. It was as if she had seen a ghost when there was such a carriage in the middle of the road. Ian narrowed her eyes and looked carefully. There was a coachman sitting in front of the carriage. When he saw her, he took off his hat. "Fei!" Fei Nu. Ian said in surprise. "Why are you here?" Fei Nu did not speak. Instead, the curtain of the carriage was lifted and a person walked down. He was wearing a dark gold brocade robe with cloud patterns. His figure was tall and elegant. When he looked over, he was like a painting in the snowy night. It was Xiao Ju. He walked over, his boots stepping on the snow, making a squeaking sound. Ian waited for him to come closer and asked, "Why aren't you sleeping at night? What are you doing here?" Xiao Ju raised his eyebrows and said disapprovingly, "What about you? Why did you go out in the middle of the night?" Ian was speechless for a long time. "I couldn't sleep, so I came out to relax." Xiao Ju sneered and stared at her calmly. "Eldest miss, you came out to relax and wear night clothes." Ian scratched her head. She knew that this person was very smart and would not be easy to fool. She frowned and said, "I came out to do something." She looked at Xiao Ju and suddenly realized something. She looked back and glanced at him. "You followed me all day and even in the middle of the night?" "Xiao Ju, even if I am your fiancé, you don't have to follow me so closely." "Xiao Ju, what are you thinking?" He seemed to be speechless. "You went out in the morning and bought a short sword from the blacksmith shop in the west of the city. Tell me," he said lazily, "you went out so late at night. Did you kill or set fire?" "Well, I bought the short sword. Didn't I get rid of Qi Wu?" Ian was puzzled. How did you know? When she did these things, she was always very careful. She knew that Qi Wu would be suspicious if he found out, but it was not easy to get rid of that big guy. "It's not Qi Wu," Xiao Ju said. "Anyway, I know." He glanced at the short sword that Ian hung on her waist and said with some disdain, "Didn't I give you money, so you can't buy a good sword? What does this have to do with the sword?" Ian said, "The most important thing is the person who uses the sword and the swordsmanship. My swordsmanship is good. I don't need a good sword to shine." Xiaoju nodded and said, "You are diligent and thrifty." "Those are good words," Ian asked. "Why do I feel like you are scolding me?" The snow outside didn't stop, and soon her hair and body were covered with a thin layer of frost. Xiaoju pulled her under the eaves of a house by the street and stood on the outside, blocking most of the wind and snow. She only asked, "You haven't told me yet. It's so late. Why did you bring a sword out?" Seeing that he could not hide it anymore, he sighed and told the truth. "I was thinking that Irufei must have some other relationship with the Yudo. Irufei is a cautious person, so it's hard to find anything that can be used against him. I want to go to the He family to find other evidence. If I can find evidence that Irufei is related to the Yudo, that would be the best." "The He family?" Xiaoju frowned slightly. "You plan to go alone?" "I was also a member of the He family in my previous life." He leaned closer and whispered, "I am very familiar with the inside and outside of the He family. I also know secret passages that others don't know about. It's easy to sneak in. It's definitely not a problem for me to go alone." "No," Xiaoju interrupted her without thinking. "It's too dangerous." "No, what's so dangerous about it?" He refuted. "I can fight against 10 of the He family's guards. At this time, they're already asleep. The room Irufei is living in now is the room that I used to live in. I know all the secret compartments in the bookshelves and the hidden compartments in the wooden drawers. When I finish looking, I will leave immediately. It won't be a problem. I have ambushed tens of thousands of Yudo's camps at night. There's nothing to be afraid of about the He family. Irufei is already suspicious of you and will definitely increase the number of guards in the residence. It's not a good time to go to the He family now. If we wait any longer, I'm afraid that all the evidence will be destroyed." Xiaoju's gaze fell on her body. After a moment, she said, "I'll go with you." "What?" Hien immediately refused. "If you go with me, you will become a burden. I can escape easily by myself. It'll be very inconvenient if you go with me." "Then you don't have to go." "Xiaoju," Hien was angry. "Why are you being so unreasonable?" This person was so stubborn. But if she quarreled with him here, the neighbors would be woken up and she wouldn't be able to escape. Hien was in a deadlock with him for a long time. Finally, she gave in and gritted her teeth. "All right, but I really didn't expect that second young Master Xiao would be so clingy in private. Everyone says that second young Master Xiao is cold and unapproachable." "Same to you." Xiaoju crossed her arms and looked at her. "Lady, he has the habit of going to other people's residences in the middle of the night to relax." He leaned over slightly and looked down at Hien. His tone was so indifferent that it made people gnash their teeth. "I'm afraid that if something happens, the husband will pay for his wife's debts." This person probably never lost an argument with others. Hien was also annoyed and said fiercely, "Forget it. If you want to go, then go. But I'll say it in advance. When we really go to the He family, don't regret it." Xiaoju smiled and reached out to her waist. Hien quickly protected the belt. "What are you doing?" He took a deep breath. "What do you think I'm going to do? A man and a woman alone in the middle of the night. There are many things that can be done." Hien whispered. "Then who knows what you're going to do?" "Hien," Xiaoju said calmly. "I'm just joking." Hien smiled fawningly. "Your sword is too lousy. Change it to this one." He took off his sword and handed it to Hien. "Isn't this the autumn drinking sword?" Hien was stunned. Xiaoju had already stuffed the autumn drinking sword into her hand. She knew that the autumn drinking sword was precious and wanted to return it to him. "Why are you giving it to me?" Xiaoju looked at her and smiled. "Change it to this one. I don't want other people to say that my Xiao family is poor and embarrassing me." "What other people?" Hien quickly said, Pay. We're going to He family today. We definitely won't alarm anyone. How can other people see us?" Without waiting for Hien to finish, Xiaoju had already pulled out the short sword at her waist and walked forward. "Take it." Hien had no choice but to follow. Fei Nu stopped the carriage at the side of the road. The three of them left together and rushed towards the He family. The He family residence was located in the west of the city. The residence didn't look as elegant as the Su family residence, but it was still considered imposing. Fei Nu was waiting outside the residence. He brought Xiao Ju to the backyard wall. When they reached a place, he stopped and said in a low voice, "Here, this is my secret passage." Xiao Ju stared at the hole in front of him, which could barely allow one person to crawl through, and asked calmly, "Your so-called secret passage is a dog hole." Shu, he put a finger to his lips. "Lower your voice. This dog hole isn't an ordinary dog hole. I dare say that no one in the He family knows about it. When I was young, I disguised myself as a man. However, I didn't have much strength. When I was with other boys, I was always worried that I would be exposed. My family was also afraid that I would be exposed too much outside and cause trouble, so they locked me up in the residence. Before I entered the Xian Changwan, every day before dawn, I would crawl out of this dog hole and climb to the capital's Dongwang Mountain to help the monks carry water and chop firewood. In the beginning, the skin on my hands was very worn out. Later on, after calluses grew, I was able to practice martial arts with Shi Tu hanging from my wrist. The youths in the Xian Changwan are very powerful. If I hadn't secretly climbed the mountain to practice, I'm afraid that I would have been even more miserable in the Xian Changwan." Her heart was moved. Could it be that at that time, I helped the monks in the temple too much work, so Buddha saw my sincerity and gave me a chance to live another life? No wonder everyone always says that we should build good karma. It's true, don't you think so? She turned to look at Xiao Ju. Xiao Ju pinched her forehead and said, "So, what you mean is you want me to crawl through the dog hole?" "Yes." He said, "I already said that you must come with me, so don't regret it. It's not like I didn't remind you." "No." Xiao Ju slightly frowned and turned her head away, as if she was disgusted by it. "I'll climb over the wall." "Don't. There are traps everywhere in the He family's walls. He Rufei must have rearranged them. I also don't know where they are. If you trigger the traps, all our previous efforts will be wasted." He looked at her. "Then why don't you be like Fei Nu and wait for me outside? I can go in by myself." "No. Young master, please do me a favor," He said helplessly. "I can't do this, I can't do that. What do you want?" Xiao Ju looked at the dog hole for a moment without any expression. Suddenly, she lifted the corner of her robe and half knelt down. She turned her head to Hien and said, "You go first." This time, Hien was really shocked. "You really want to crawl through? Hurry up." Xiao Ju couldn't bear it anymore. Hien originally wanted to use the dog hole to make Xiao Ju back off. He didn't expect her to really crawl through it. For a moment, he was filled with emotions. Xiao Ju's sacrifice was really too big. If the soldiers of the Nine Flags Battalion knew that their commander-in-chief didn't sleep and crawled through a dog hole in the middle of the night, they would definitely kill her. However, Hien didn't purposely make things difficult for her. This dog hole in the He family's house was dug by her personally. The He family didn't like to raise dogs. Hien was the one who personally raised the stray dogs outside. This place was much safer than climbing over the wall, as Xiao Ju had said. "Then follow me." Hien whispered, "Be gentle." She didn't mind crawling through the dog hole at all. After all, she had crawled through it since she was young. It had been a long time since she last crawled through it. She felt quite familiar with it. She moved her body and crawled in like a loach. Xiao Ju endured it and crawled in as well. The walls of the He residence were thick, and this hole was dug by Hien when he was young, so it wasn't very big. With his current adult stature, it seemed a little narrow. As soon as he crawled out, before he could stand firm, he saw a yellow thing under the weak light of the lantern pounce over with a whoosh. Xiao Ju was about to make a move when Hien whispered in surprise, "Air Mao." The thing called Air Mao ran in front of Hien, rolled around, and grabbed Hien's leg affectionately. It was a yellow dog. Xiao Ju asked, "What is this?" "It's my pet," Hien whispered. "I thought Air Mao would be chased out after I died. I didn't expect it to still be here." To be precise, when Hien was young, he picked up a stray dog and brought it home. He named it Mao. The He family didn't like dirty stray dogs. However, at that time, He didn't have any friends. When he was lonely, it was good to have a yellow dog as a companion. He begged Madame to let the mouse stay in the residence. The mouse gave birth to a litter of puppies. However, the weather was too cold. Other than Mao, none of them survived. The one that survived, Mao, was a mute. Rufei removed all traces of Hien. Hien thought that he would never see Mao again. He didn't expect to see it again. However, Mao usually lived in the backyard and caught mice to eat. It wasn't that Rufei didn't want to get rid of it, but that he had forgotten about it. It seems like it recognized me. Hien looked at Mao, who was wagging its tail happily at him. He sighed, I was classmates with you, Lin Shuanghe, and Yin He for so long. You didn't recognize me. Your eyesight is not as good as Mao's. Mao foolishly stuck its tongue out at Hien and smiled. Xiao Ju closed her eyes and said patiently, Now is not the time for you to reunite and reminisce. I know. Hien gestured to Mao to sit down. The yellow dog obediently sat down. Mao, you stay here and keep watch for me. She turned to Xiao Ju and said, Come with me. The residence was very big. Hien walked very cautiously. Everywhere he went, he would hide in the dark to see if there were any servants around. Although she didn't enter the residence a few days ago, she secretly wandered around the outside of the residence. The number of servants in the residence was much more than when she was still here. She didn't need to think to know that it was Rufei's doing. Maybe Rufei thought that the residence had more servants, so he could maintain the image of General Feihong. Or maybe he had a guilty conscience. The courtyard that Rufei lived in was also the courtyard that Yin used to live in. It was the deepest and most innermost room in the residence. Xiao Ju asked in a low voice, Why is it so far away? Because young master, he was born ugly and eccentric. Yin said, He doesn't like to interact too much with others. There were very few servants in her courtyard, and it was very secluded. If Yin was a quiet child, it would be fine. But children always had many fantasies. She was originally lively and curious about everything. Because of her identity, she could only stay in the courtyard and play by herself. After a long time, even if she wasn't eccentric, she was raised to be eccentric. As a child, she couldn't do this or that. Even the servant girls couldn't serve her, let alone play with her. After a long time, she would find fun for herself. For example, she used a tree branch to draw pictures in the sand. She could accurately draw every room in the residence because she had walked through it thousands of times in her mind. Hien had once suspected that after she joined the army, the reason why she was always so sensitive to the terrain and had a photographic memory was actually because of the experience she had when she was young. There are changes in the structure of the residence. Hien said in a low voice, We have to be careful. It was already very late at night. The people on night watch were all in the outer courtyard. There were no movements in the residence, so they could be a little more at ease. Seeing that they were about to reach Rufei's courtyard, Hien became more and more nervous. When they turned into a long corridor and were about to walk forward, Hien's footsteps paused. Suddenly, she quietly pulled Xiao Ju into an empty tea room. Xiao Ju was about to speak when Hien covered her mouth. Shoo, there's someone here. There was the sound of footsteps outside. It was probably a servant who went to the outhouse at night. The footsteps passed by the door, and the sound gradually faded away. When there was no more sound outside, Hien let out a sigh of relief. When she turned her head, she was stunned. The moon had come out at some point. It shone through the window and shone on the ground. Xiao Ju was pushed to the wall by her, his back against it. Hien was so nervous that her whole body was almost lying on top of him, but he didn't move at all. His hands were slightly behind him, as if he was deliberately avoiding her. Hien covered his mouth, looking like a female hooligan who was molesting others. She was shocked and subconsciously retracted her hand. The young man looked at her indifferently. Suddenly, he curved his lips and said silently, Are you taking advantage of me? Hien almost choked. She shook her head. No, I was too anxious just now. I didn't do it on purpose. The young man nodded with a faint smile. His eyes clearly showed that he didn't believe her. Hien couldn't say anything. Anyway, it wasn't the first time she molested Xiao Ju. She didn't care if it was just 1 or 2 times. She glanced outside through the door. Seeing that there was no one, she whispered, "Let's go." Chapter 2:24. Other than the servant who woke up in the middle of the night to use the toilet, the rest of the journey was smooth and they did not meet anyone else. Hien carefully walked to the door of her room and whispered in Xiao Ju's ear, "This is He Rufei's study room." So this was Yian's study room. But now it was He Rufei's study room. After walking around and finding no other hidden mechanisms, Hien gently pushed the door open and walked in. This was the place where he lived, so he was very familiar with it. Xiao Ju followed him in. As soon as they entered, Hien was surprised. The bookshelves were still the same as before, and the table was the same as before. But the decorations in the study room were many times more than before. There were all kinds of porcelain and antiques. It was completely different from when Hien lived in the past. She guessed that He Rufei probably put all the things that His Majesty gave him in the study room. She did not know who he was showing them off to. The bookshelves were originally half filled with books, but now they were full. In the middle of the wall, there was a sword hanging. The blade of the sword was green, and the scabbard had a bit of green color. It was Qinglang. She was stunned for a moment, and her eyes unconsciously focused on the Qinglang sword. She wanted to reach out for the sword, but when her fingers were about to touch the blade, she retracted her hand. Xiao Ju asked, "What's wrong?" Hien shook his head. Now is not the time. Even if she could steal the Qinglang sword back tonight, He Rufei would definitely report it to the officials tomorrow. The sword in her hand would become a stolen property, and she would not be able to show it in public. Wouldn't this be an insult to the Qinglang sword? So, now is not the time. Hien thought for a moment, got up, and walked to the bookshelf. He squatted down, and half of his body was on the ground. He reached into the innermost part of the bookshelf and felt around. When he touched a familiar bulge, the hidden compartment made a slight click sound. It was actually an empty compartment. Hien took out a small palm-sized box from the compartment. Xiao Ju asked, "What is this?" "Exquisite box." Hien replied in a low voice, "Back then, His Majesty gave me a reward. This is the only one in the world. After I left, I gave it to He Rufei. I don't think he was willing to throw it away." The hidden compartment on the bookshelf was made by Hien in the past. This exquisite box was also very precious. Before she married into the Su family, she couldn't take these things with her, so she gave them all to He Rufei. The jewel box was very suitable for storing secret scrolls. Even the most outstanding craftsman in the world would not be able to open it. Only the person who had set up the opening method for the jewel box would know how to open it. Moreover, the way to solve the problem could only be set up once. One day, she suddenly realized that perhaps in the past, Hien was just like He Xining. They would cry when they were wronged, and they would yearn to have something they liked. Just like a strong girl would also need her mother's care and love. And the little girl in front of her, who always grabbed her clothes and clamored to buy candy, had unknowingly grown up. He Xining didn't know that when she was serious and stubborn in pursuit of the truth, she was very similar to her dead eldest sister. But even so, she still couldn't say anything. The more she knew, the more dangerous it would be for He Xining. She had already lost a daughter. She couldn't lose another one. Before Madam he could say anything, she suddenly heard someone shouting from outside. "There's a thief! A thief has entered the residence. Quickly catch the thief." Immediately, the entire He family became lively. "A thief?" He Xining subconsciously shrank to the head of the bed and said, "Which thief is so blind that he dares to enter our residence?" "Madam," he grabbed her arm. "Don't talk and don't go out. Be careful." He Xining nodded. On the other side, Hien was running around the courtyard with Xiao Ju, secretly cursing He Rufei for being cunning. Although He Rufei couldn't make any changes in the way of opening the exquisite box, this person was very suspicious and actually installed a layer of mechanism inside the box. Once the exquisite box was opened, there would be a whistling sound. In this way, as long as someone opened the exquisite box, they would be discovered. However, when she opened it just now, she clearly saw that there were few letters inside. She put the letters into her bosom. Since Rufe didn't leave the exquisite box empty and even deliberately tampered with it, these letters must be very important. Today's trip wasn't considered to be in vain. The bodyguards are all awake. Xiao Ju reminded her, "Do we run or fight? I'm carrying your sword. Once the sword is unsheathed, it will be exposed. We can't fight." Ian looked down and thought, "Come with me." She knew every corner of the He family's courtyard by heart, so it was easy to avoid people. But she didn't know if it was because Rufe was very guilty these days. There were more bodyguards than servants in the residence. At this moment, when the whistle sounded, torches and people came from all directions. "They're over there, Chase. The general said that if we catch the assassin, we don't need to leave him alive. Life or death." Ian sneered in her heart. Unexpectedly, she was so scared. She was even more sure that the letters in her bosom were not simple. She pulled Xiao Ju and ran all the way. When they passed by a house, she hid inside. "Madam," he was pulling, he seeming to lean against the head of the bed. She was very nervous as she hugged the quilt. Unexpectedly, there were two more people in the room. Ishining was so scared that she was about to scream. The next moment, a cold sword was placed on her neck. The masked man in black said, "Shut up. If you dare to scream, I'll kill you." Ishining was so scared that she immediately shut up. Ian held the long sword in her hand. She was very annoyed. She originally thought that since Madame He's courtyard was the closest to the outer wall, it would be easy to pass through. Who knew that Madame He was still awake in the middle of the night? Ishining was also here. It was so late at night. What was she doing here instead of sleeping? Were the mother and daughter whispering to each other? Ian's heart immediately gave birth to a sour taste. But what was this now? She was holding her biological mother and biological sister hostage. Perhaps the commotion inside had spread to the outside, as a maidservant outside asked, "Second Madam? Did something happen to Second Madam?" Ian's heart skipped a beat. Before she could threaten her, Madam He had already spoken. Her tone was normal. "It's nothing. It's just a little cough." Ian breathed a sigh of relief when there was no more noise outside. She looked at Xiao Ju behind her. She was vigilantly staring at the door to prevent anyone from rushing in. "Listen," Ian said in a low voice. "I don't mean to hurt the two of you. Give me the key to the backyard and let the two of us go." Ishining said in a trembling voice. "Who knows if you'll kill us to keep us quiet?" Ian was a little surprised. His sister looked so obedient, but he didn't expect her to be so brave. She deliberately lowered her voice and said in a sinister voice, "Do you think you have the right to talk terms with me?" Ishining's face turned pale. She didn't dare to speak. On the other hand, Madame He ignored the sword on Ishining's neck. She got off the bed and took out a key from the drawer. She handed it to her and said, "You can leave now." Ian was very surprised. He thought that Madame He would also talk terms with her or find a way to inform the He family. Ian was even prepared to be on guard, but he didn't expect her to be so peaceful. Ian couldn't help but look at her. The woman in front of him was staring at him. Ian couldn't understand her gaze. She seemed to be looking at Ian, but also seemed to be looking at another person through Ian. If Ian didn't know that he was wearing a black mask, he would have suspected that Madame He had recognized him. Seeing that Ian didn't move, Madame He pushed her again. "The bodyguards will come soon. Let's go." Xiao Ju nodded to her and said, "Let's go." Ian didn't care about anything else. She grabbed the key to the backyard and turned to leave. The moment she passed by, she suddenly felt something stuffed in her hand. She didn't have time to look at it carefully. She subconsciously put the thing in her hand into her arms, took the key, opened the door of the backyard, and ran out. Madame He was right. The pursuers would be here in a blink of an eye. They came through the dog hole, but they didn't have time to go back. Since they were exposed, they directly went through the back wall. Just as the guard was about to chase after them, he suddenly felt a pain in his knee. Looking down, he saw a yellow dog biting his calf. The pain made him wail like a ghost and howl like a wolf. Unable to catch up, he could only watch as the two black-clothed men disappeared into the night. The entire residence was in chaos. He Shining finally managed to calm herself down with great difficulty. She reignited the lamp on the table and patted her chest as she said, I was really scared to death just now. That person's eyes were so fierce. I was really afraid that he would kill us. Mother, if Uncle knew that we let the assassins go, even if it was to save his life, he would be angry. If no one found out about this, let's not tell anyone for the time being. Mother? Madam, he just stared at her hands blankly, as if she didn't hear what she just said. He Shining said anxiously, Mother. Madam, he came back to her senses and looked at her. I know. Don't tell anyone about this. Don't tell Master Su either. He Shining felt strange. His mother's expression when she saw the men in black was very strange. Then she thought of something, but did those two men really come to steal something? I saw that they were empty-handed, so they didn't steal anything. My military book. By the way, where's my military book? When she was talking to second madam, he on the bed, the military book was placed at the head of the bed. Now that it was empty, he Shining was startled. Oh no, those two couldn't have stolen my military book, right? But why did they steal it? Mother, did you see my military book? Madam, he coughed and said, no need to look for it. I gave a military book to the men in black just now. Why? He Shining didn't expect that, madam, he would do such a thing. That thing will be a disaster in our hands. Madam, he looked empty. Those two men came to steal, but they were empty-handed. I don't know if they stole what they wanted to steal. If they stole it, it would be the icing on the cake. If they didn't, it would be a timely help. They didn't take the risk to come to the He family in vain. Mother, He Shining said angrily. How can it be like that? It was difficult for me to get that thing from the Su family. Remember, Madam He's expression became serious. Whether it's the assassins tonight or the military book of the Su family, don't mention it to anyone. He Shining originally came to solve his doubts. Now that he didn't understand the mystery, there were more and more things he didn't understand, but he couldn't do anything. In the end, he could only say, I know. I won't mention it to anyone. Fei Nu was outside, so when he received He Yin and Madam He, the three of them immediately hid in another courtyard. Where's this place? He Yin asked curiously. I'm in another courtyard in Shuo City. Sometimes it's inconvenient to do things in the mansion, so I'll do it here. Xiao Ju replied. He Yin thought for a moment and understood. Xiao Jing and Madam He were very kind. Xiao Ju's experience meant that his actions wouldn't be understood by most people. This was good. If they couldn't see it, it would save them a lot of trouble. He Yin took out the letter from the exquisite box and showed it to Xiao Ju, showing off. Look, this trip is very fruitful. I already said that going to the He family would definitely make a profit. Xiao Ju glanced at her and said, It's very dangerous. It's only this time, don't do it again. She paused and said, Starting tomorrow, He Rufei will use this as an excuse to search the entire Shuo city. You should stay at home for the next few days and don't act rashly. If these letters are lost, the first person He Rufei will suspect is me. I'm afraid it will implicate you. It's okay. I'm Marquis Wuan, personally appointed by His Majesty. If he can't produce evidence, he can't do anything to me. He Yin couldn't wait to open the letter. Let's see what's in the letter first. He Rufei hid it so well. I don't believe it's a love poem. There were a total of 3 letters. He Yin and Xiao Ju opened each letter. It wasn't long, but after reading it, both of their expressions changed. Bastard. He Yin put down the letter in his hand and couldn't help but punch the table. There's actually such a heartless person in the world. Of the 3 letters, 2 were for Yudo and 1 was for Su Jingfu. Although He Yin guessed that He Rufei might have a relationship with Su Jingfu when he saw He Rufei's servant Ding Yi in Liangzhou City, he didn't have any evidence. The letter in front of him clearly stated in black and white that this was indeed the case. He Rufei really did make a deal with the Yudo after the battle in Huayuan. He Rufei gave the Fuyue army's military intelligence to the Yudo and purposely won a bitter victory. The price was to establish a relationship with Prime Minister Su and express his sincerity in cooperating with Su Jingfu. He would also advocate for peace when a Yudo emissary came to the capital to ask for peace and facilitate the Yudo to open a market in Dawei. Rufei's greatest fear was that his identity would be exposed and that the world would find out that he was different from the general Fei Hong of the past. But in order to hide his identity, he actually colluded with the enemy and betrayed the country. He didn't care about the lives of the people of Dawei. Xiao Ju looked at the letter in her hand. It was troublesome for Rufei to establish a relationship with Su Jingfu. Su Jingfu was the most powerful person among the civil officials. Most of the civil officials were in favor of peace, and only a few generals were in favor of war. However, General Fei Hong had always had a good reputation among the generals. It's not safe for me to keep this. He thought for a while and said to Xiao Ju, "You should keep it. No matter how daring Rufei is, he won't dare to go to Xiao family and behave atrociously." She raised her head and looked at the sky. It won't be long before dawn. Today, she was delayed for a whole night. I have to go back. When dawn comes, Rufei will send people to search the entire Shuo capital. I'm afraid that something will happen. I'll send you back. Ian nodded. Although she tried to pretend, as usual, the matter of Madame, he still weighed heavily on her heart. Although at that time, no one knew that she wanted to force Madame He to open the door for her, but who knew if Rufei would suspect Madame He, even if she was from a He family. Rufei was so cruel and merciless to her. So what if she was Madame He? Yuan Liang didn't care about the relationship between father and daughter. How much of the relationship between husband and wife would there be left? Don't worry, I will send people to sneak into the He family and watch over Madame He. As if he saw her worry, he said, "I won't let anything happen to her." Ian raised her head and looked at him. She was slightly relieved. Then, "Thank you very much." Even so, she still looked a little unhappy. Xiao Ju's eyes lightly swept over her and said, "Ian, what? It's my birthday in 2 days." Ian said, "Oh." She suddenly reacted and raised her head. "Then what do you want? I can buy it for you." "Do you have money?" he asked. "Didn't you give me a banknote last time?" Ian answered very smoothly. When she saw his expression, she laughed embarrassedly, as if it was wrong to use someone else's money to buy a gift for someone else. "But I only have the money you gave me. I'm not a good embroidery woman. It's impossible for me to embroider a handkerchief in 1 or 2 days. Why didn't you say so earlier? It's too late for me to do it now. How about I go pick up a piece of shirtu for you and use an axe to chop it into a shape you like?" When they were in the Liang province guards, Chu Zhao didn't sleep in the middle of the night just to pick up shirtu. Perhaps all rich young masters had this kind of strange hobby. Xiao Ju's face darkened, as if he was thinking of a bad memory. "No need." "Then what do you need?" Ian moved closer to him and asked. After being interrupted by Xiao Ju, her depressed mood eased a lot. At least for now, she was sincerely worried about young Master Zhao's birthday gift. "I want to go to the night market." Xiao Ju glanced at her. "Take the banknotes with you. If I like something, buy it for me." Now, Ian understood. Second young Master Xiao wanted to enjoy the feeling of being pampered. But this kind of thing was usually done by men accompanying women to the night market, buying flowers, jade, pearls, and hairpins for the women. Why was it reversed when it came to Xiao Ju? Ian let Xiao Ju sit down first. She ran in front of the lady boss and smiled. "A bowl of noodles." She paused, then said, "Today is this young master's birthday." She secretly pointed at Xiao Ju. "I'll have to trouble the lady boss to make this bowl of noodles more beautiful. Add an egg, more vegetables, and more braised meat." "Oh, it's good to have a drumstick. That's enough. That's enough." Mississippi, the lady boss smiled. "Any more, and the bowl won't fit." "Oh." Ian nodded. "That's all for now." The lady boss smiled as she kneaded the noodles. The young master sitting here must be Mrs. Lover. He's really handsome. Tian's face turned red. She didn't dare to respond. The lady boss probably didn't know Xiao Ju. She was simply captivated by Xiao Ju's beauty. I've been selling noodles here for so long, but this is the first time I've seen such a handsome young master. Since you two are lovers, why don't we order a bowl of sweet dumplings with sesame fillings? The two of you can eat a bowl of sweet dumplings at the lantern market. You two will be lovers for the rest of your life. No need. Tian smiled. This young master doesn't like sweet things. I see. What a pity. The lady boss was still smiling. She didn't try to persuade him. Tian was about to walk toward Xiao Ju, but after taking 2 steps, he turned back and said to the lady boss, I think I'd better have a bowl. The lady boss smiled sweetly. Okay. When the noodles were served, Xiao Ju stared at the bowl in front of him. He was speechless for a moment. Tian, are you feeding a pig? The bowl wasn't big, but it was filled to the brim with noodles. There was an egg, emerald green leaves, and a few large pieces of braised meat. It was very sumptuous. Looking at it, the noodles were about to overflow from the bowl. The other bowls were all filled with clear water. Only the bowl in front of Xiao Ju was different. Eat more. Tian passed him a pair of chopsticks. Since it's your birthday, of course you can't just casually celebrate it. I specially asked the lady boss to put some noodles in for you. It's my treat. Don't be shy. Everyone's eyes fell on their table. This was the first time in Xiao Ju's life that someone looked at him as if he was a rice bucket. However, the girl in front of him held her cheeks with her hands and smiled sincerely. After holding back for a moment, he finally resigned himself to his fate and picked up the longevity noodles in front of him. Tian was very satisfied. Remember to eat it all. Xiao Ju's chopsticks trembled. He tried his best to maintain a calm expression. At this time, the lady boss's lantern dumplings were served. The dumplings were round, and there were exactly 9 of them. They were served in red porcelain bowls and were very pleasing to the eye. The lady boss didn't know if it was intentional or not, but she only gave her a spoon. Tian lowered her head and scooped one in her mouth.